Doork East Magazine Volume 2. Always on the right side of the map. September 2022. Things are heating up. Welcome to the second volume of Doork East Magazine. It is Apetember and things are heating up. Our magazine reporters have been hard at work this summer on their quest for the most interesting stories inside the minds of our dorks. Don't miss the announcement of a new institution in Doork East, the Doork East BAANK. It will change your lives, dorks. Who thought that thanks to the blockchain, you will finally be able to talk to your banker? Letter from King Monet, the King of Doork East. Author, Upwind Strategy.
Esteemed fellow dorks, we are delighted to present to you the second volume of Doork East Magazine. Our hearts swell with pride and honor as we witness the remarkable apes who have joined our ranks in recent months. We extend a warm welcome to each of you. Over an exhilarating summer, our community has engaged in spirited discussions about the future, and we surmise that you are eager to uncover more within the pages of this magazine. The essence of the ape society lies in the power of collective unity, while Doork East encapsulates the enjoyment and mutual growth we experience throughout our extraordinary journey together. That's precisely why, in the forthcoming months, we will unveil the Doork East BAANK, a not-for-profit networking instrument dedicated to serving the entire ape society and beyond. This initiative will feature exclusive business card badges and a system acknowledging your contributions to the ape society, a mark of distinction and an invitation to accomplish even greater feats. You can already submit your application to become a banker at dorkeastbank.com. Yours sincerely, Francisco Monet.
Apetember, a sonnet by King Bradford Rich. Author, Cardano Shield. To build anew, we all have roles to play. From brilliant artists to the noble poet. We care not what the market does each day, and focus on our vision as we grow it. Apetember came, the leaves began to turn. The projects we commenced set out to build. Like leaves, our work turned vibrant as we learn. To join our minds and see our work fulfilled. To celebrate we raise Apetember beers. And bid our dorks warm autumn cheers.
Should you become an NFT founder? A letter from King Whit Maddock. Author, Hopiumjunky. As is always the case when a title begins with a question mark, the answer is no. I know, the allure is great. Best case scenario, you become a kind of kingpin to a motley crew of degens who are desperate to fit in anywhere. Worst case, you walk off with buckets of ADA after a couple months. Wait, which is the best case again? And it's easy. Hire someone on Fiverr, start a Discord. Is there even a step 3? Pop into any spaces with over 50 listeners, and you'll hear every influencer with more than 1,000 followers talking about their upcoming mint. In their minds, they probably think, I'm great at tweeting bullshit marketing, so I'd be great at running a project. This is the same flawed thinking that resulted in thousands of insufferable human resources managers who are good with people. The odds are infinitesimal that you, reader, have what it takes to make a successful project on your own. And if you really have the spark to make it, you probably didn't read past my first sentence. Does that mean the world of NFT building is shut to you? Absolutely not. Consider building where you're at. You'd be hard-pressed to find a roadmap that doesn't include the word community, but there are very few that contemplate the kind of people that community is comprised of. A community of flippers is no community at all. Consider integrating yourself into a proven group instead of trying to start your own from scratch. Find a team you believe in with art that you love. Vet the hell out of them. Determine if they have values at all and if they align with yours. See if they're open to ideas that are beyond the confines of their roadmaps. Do they shut down your ideas or work with you to make them better? Do they say, no, no, no? Or do they say, hell yeah, here's who you should talk to. This is how we could make that even better. When you find a worthy project, settle in. Learn some skills. Explore your creativity. Roll up your sleeves. Push yourself. The final product will be better than if you tried to go it alone. If you decide to start a project later, you'll have more experience to draw on. Many highly in-demand skills can be learned from $20 Udemy courses or free videos on YouTube. Whether your interest is music composition, game design, coding, finance, or fiction, your unique talents will be more impactful when paired with the talents of others. It's more fun and gratifying too, and it might even distract you from staring at prices all day.
Letter from King Wilfred Thomas. Author, Ada Locator.
Cheers, Thomas Clan. Wishing you all the best in this crazy market. So close to staking, hope you have all secured yourselves a nice cabin to stake your prized NFTs. What are you looking forward to crafting? We should start thinking of these opportunities ahead to position ourselves as the cornerstone craftsman family that we are. We are Thomas, but at heart, we are all dorks. Looking forward to the reveal of our local landmark in a huge way. A hearty cheer to all apes of Doork as Apetember comes to an end, many exciting times ahead. Wilfred Thomas.
Doork East Bank. The Bank of Doork East. Article by Redford White, exclusive reporter for Doork East magazine. Author, Upwind Strategy. One of the world's leading financial institutions, based in Doork East, has established a unique network within influential circles. This investigation delves into the inner workings of the most powerful bank in the ape world. Mornington Road is home to two almost adjoining monuments. One, the world-famous Doork East landmark, visible from far away, is a must-see for any ape visiting Doork East. The other, a blue-roofed wooden chateau nestled at 120 Mornington Road, is more mysterious. Here, there are no large, ostentatious plaques on the entrance door, nor are there any large advertising logos in the magnificent main hall. Once past the impressive security system, one enters a cozy atmosphere with soft lights, surrounded by paintings and antique tapestries on the walls. At the back of the majestic entrance hall, one can see the imposing forged gates that lead to the vaults whose unique depths has earned the bank its renown as the most secure in the world. The history of this establishment, founded in the early days of the Ape Society by the King of Doork East himself, Francisco Monet, one of only 2 royal advisor kings, is intertwined with that of the entire Ape Society. Long ago, the first pioneers to venture into Doork East's remote territories observed that gravity seemed heightened in the region. King Monet enlisted his team of scientist apes to covertly investigate this anomaly. After months of rigorous research, meticulously documented in the Doork East archives, they discovered the cause, an unusually high density of matter in Doork East soil. Embodying the entrepreneurial spirit that defines the apes, King Monet commissioned explorer engineers to forge specialized instruments to excavate this seemingly unprofitable terrain. Unbeknownst to them, King Monet had a clear vision: the impenetrable soil would offer apes an unrivaled level of security. The vaults, hewn in the depths of these chasms by his army of over 100 craftsmen, would instill confidence in apes, encouraging them to make larger investments in art and other assets with the assurance that their possessions would be safeguarded within the bank's vaults. Since its inception, the bank has continued to flourish, owing its prosperity to this unique infrastructure. This wealth has enabled the bank to cultivate its brand and a singular network, which now constitutes the lion's share of its value. Team spirit, bespoke service, challenge, and passion are the guiding principles of Doork East bankers who welcome clients in lounges adorned with some of the most prestigious works of art in ape history. Diamond hand trophies, family crests, and ape family photographs hold pride of place on the bankers' desks. In these offices, at first glance, nothing distinguishes Doork East Bank from the other financial institutions of the Ape Society, except for an imperceptible feeling of power. The world's preeminent bank has forged an unparalleled network within the upper echelons of power. A web that connects the NFT investment elite with the blockchain establishment, united by shared values of trust and collaboration. Amidst the bear market, the Mornington Road institution reigned over the financial world, its supremacy derived from its passion and technical expertise. The bank's finest minds dedicate themselves to serving their clients, advising on acquisitions and market calls. The immense fortune amassed by its leaders only serves to underscore this prowess. The bank's culture is unique and deserves a closer examination. In meetings and on the trading floor, bankers are attentive to their clients, upholding one of the bank's 10 core tenets: bespoke service for each of our customers. To accomplish this, teamwork and internal dialogue are paramount. Changing the world is what motivates a true dork. In line with this ambition, the bank recently announced the launch of a new recruitment program designed to further expand its formidable workforce. The most valuable asset of any bank is its primate capital, asserts King Monet. Hence, the bank's recruitment process is regarded as one of the most esteemed in the industry. Prospective applicants are encouraged to complete an online form on the bank's website, doorkeastbank.com. Applications will be limited to 1 ape per individual. Each successful applicant will be assigned a position within the bank, with the level determined by various criteria assessing their involvement in Doork East and the Ape Society. A career in banking is highly sought after, as it provides ample networking opportunities and the chance to assume a prominent role within the Ape Society. Globally, the most ambitious apes aspire to join the bank. Insiders extol its open, casual, and welcoming Doork East culture, where individuals are both intellectually astute and down-to-earth. Bankers new to the profession are typically referred to as junior bankers. Job titles such as analyst describe true entry-level positions, while associate denotes roles requiring some experience. Conversely, senior banker refers to those with extensive banking expertise. Job titles in this category include Vice President, VP, Director, and Managing Director, MD. The select few who ascend to the highest rungs of the corporate ladder join the Managing Committee Doork East Bank's inner sanctum as partners. However, this does not render bankers soldier monks. Their rewards are considerable. While their passion for the society often eclipses their personal lives, holidays, and leisure, their coffers remain perpetually full. Being a DE Bank's banker comes with the following benefits. 1. A business card badged version of your banker ape. 2. A personalized Doork East Bank's virtual business card, also available on demand in professionally printable format. 3. A dedicated web page on Doork East Bank's website with a description of the banker ape, his skills, areas of expertise, and the cooperation opportunities they are open to. 4. Their position officially recognized as a role in the discords of both Doork East and the Ape Society. 5. And access to the exclusive Discord channels of Doork East Bank. 6. The ability to be featured officially as a banker in the articles of Doork East magazine. 7. The ability for the banker to publish updates about his latest deals, current adventures, endeavors, aspirations, reflections, and opinions in Financial Tribune section of Doork East magazine. 8. A community of other apes with whom you can network and explore opportunities. Being a Doork East banker not only signifies prestige but also serves as an invitation to achieve more while providing the necessary tools. It offers visibility and networking opportunities with other influential true dorks of Doork East and beyond, who are committed to changing the world. After all, what is good for the world is good for the Ape Society, and vice versa. Victoria Grove, the Pride of Doork East. Author, Toggen. The Pride of Doork East, the main street of the district in the center of commerce and decision-making, Victoria Grove is a magnificent splendor and display of what the dorks have managed to accomplish. Although the district residents are known for their rowdiness and loud behavior, the main streets reflect clean, refined living and civilized order. The main road from Jictus to Doork East runs from Harriman Lane straight into Victoria Grove. Crossing the border sees the road laid with grey stone slabs in a wide boulevard stretching far to the east. The first thing you will see is an enormous flagpole erected close to the border. The Doork East crest flies high and proud in the wind. On both sides of the boulevard there are depots with carts, horses and donkeys. This is the main transit station before exporting goods to the west. Huge piles of everything from tobacco to wheat are stocked, ready for further transport to the western districts. On the south side of the boulevard, incoming goods are stored for distribution and further transport into the district. Looking east, you will see cottages and estates along the side of the roads, but also majestic elm trees planted in a straight line along the boulevard. Along with the slabs on the road, this is a pleasant view for the visitors traveling to the central square of Victoria Grove. Driving a cart down the boulevard gives you the magnificent view of the police station with its 3 high towers rising from the central building. Other famous structures such as the Doork East Art Exhibition Center and the famous Dentist Central can be seen to the south prior to entering the central square. Driving close to the center, the space opens and the City Hall dominates the immediate view. With its 9 breathtaking marble pillars holding up the massive roof structure and gargoyles spouting water down an intricate maze of channels, it's truly a sight to behold. Near the City Hall, there are several official buildings serving as embassies and hotels for foreign apes visiting Doork East. The very center of the square sports a rotunda where artists from all over the Ape Society can display their art and receive feedback on their works. Oak, elm and cherry trees give shade to the central square where several restaurants and bars are spread out. To further give the place class, the apes have designed a system of fountains and channels giving the square an impression of an oasis in the desert. It is an area of calm contemplation and reflection as well as a place to mingle and meet important apes from all other districts. Moving past the central square, the Doork East Hospital and Fire Station can be seen. Each building is adjacent on the east side of the square and is quite majestic with high towers looming close to the height of the City Hall. Several cottages are located here on each side of the street. Due to the slabs on the main boulevard, the entrance to each of the cabins are also very well kept. Hedges with ornate trimmings of ape figures are seen in this area, giving the cottages class and style. Further along, the road cuts somewhat diagonally to the south and joins the Regent Place Boulevard due to the large walls being erected. Here, the road is somewhat more rural in appearance as the slabs are substituted for hard dirt ground and gravel. The surroundings are still looking very nice though, with well-kept buildings and a plethora of art galleries, craftsman stores and restaurants. Apes who are looking for quality wares throughout the Ape Society usually stop by here once a year to browse the many quality products on display. Past the large walls, the road again turns to the north and the boulevard looks somewhat the same as in the west. In this area there are several cigar saloons, gentlemen clubs and private clubs for dignified apes. The area is very peaceful as the apes have spent lots of resources keeping the surroundings calm and clean. All apes can walk here after dark feeling completely safe from thugs and other lowlife. It's a beautiful area to reside and a fantastic place to visit. If you ever get a chance, have a look at the surroundings of Victoria Grove, the pride of Doork East.
More nefarious activities in Doork East, or legit alien business ventures. Author, Toggen. Several weeks had passed since the last time we visited Florimond Brown at Holly Hill Avenue. After we covered the strange sounds and lights troubling the residents in issue 1 of Doork East magazine, it seemed most apes now dared to venture out in the streets again. Not only had the activities picked up again, but after dark, local apes from the area had started accumulating in droves outside the gates of 110 Holly Hill Avenue. Our reports on why this was happening ranged from pure curiosity to rumors of free soup being handed out after dark. Naturally, we had to return to find the latest news for our readers, and we were also very curious about the free soup recipe that we were promised. As usual, Redford White and Ramsey Castillo will be reporting. It seemed fitting to travel up to the Holly Hill Chateau after dark. In the past this was when the streets were empty and the sky was beaming. We wanted to see if anything had changed since our last visit. As we passed the iconic clock museum at Menendez Way and looked up in the sky, we no longer saw the flickering random light as before. Instead, it was clear that a single white beam radiated upwards into the nothingness. Every now and then a buzz could be heard from the general area, but the eerie sounds of the past now seemed to have disappeared. Walking closer to the beam, it was now clear that the source came from the chateau of Florimond Brown. When approaching the main gates, we could see a rather large group of apes who had set up camp on the lawn outside. Some of them had piled up some scaffolds so they could get a better view of what went on behind the gates, while others were more occupied with drinking beer and warming sausages over an open fire. From afar we could glimpse what looked like a shiny big machine erected in the backyard. It was brass-colored and had many strange coils and pins poking out from all sides. The beam of light was shining from what looked like a giant green crystal mounted on the very top of the machine. Moving closer to the gate, we were stopped by a peculiar-looking ape with a fruit bowl on his head and a multicolored jacket. His eyes were wide open, and he was constantly flailing his arms when speaking.
They want to harvest our frontal cortex, you know, just you wait, they'll take it, and we are back in the trees hanging upside down, picking our noses. It's the aliens, they have a plan. You see now it's happening.
The ape was speaking without drawing his breath, and it was just when he had to stop to fill his lungs that we could get a word in.
Who are you, sir, and what are you saying? Do you know what is going on here?
Now that the ape had resupplied his oxygen levels, he continued.
Alvin Best at your service. Leader of Death, Doork East Association of Terrestrial Hazards. They'll take our creativity. Only the hat will protect us. The truth will be unveiled. Next, they want our fur for toilet paper. Wake up, man, before it's too late. We're many colors, it's the only way, they can't see us then. Birds in a cage. Parrots for all.
After this monologue, Alvin seemed to be distracted and walked over to eat a sausage. Thinking that this was a rather peculiar ape, we continued towards the main gate of the chateau to see if we could get some words in with the resident alien ape. 3 big signs had been hammered up on the front gate. "Keep out. By appointment only death members beyond this point will be reported to military officers. No free soup to be had here. Seeing that we probably had an appointment and that we just briefly met Alvin Best of Death, we figured that we'd risk going inside. Quickly opening and closing the gate, several of the other bystanders were trying to poke their heads through the cracks. Luckily, we were able to fend them off and started walking to the front door. Being wise from injury from our last visit, we refrained from knocking on the copper plate and proceeded to knock at the wooden frame instead. After a little while the door moved slightly, and we could see two eyes poking out from the crack.
"Oh, it's you lot. Hurry, come inside and close the door right away."
We did as we were told and quickly stepped inside the stately chateau. Once inside, we briefly glimpsed the lobby being decorated by all kinds of tubing and hoses going from one place to the other. Steam was also coming out from several nooks and crannies across the hall, and the fur on our bodies was standing out as if static. The alien ape was now standing in front of us and looked to have a strange mix of irate demeanor and worried wrinkles.
"You lot certainly played a trick on me with your article in Doork East magazine,"
the brown ape proclaimed as he peered out of the glass in the door.
"After your story, all the bloody apes have stopped being afraid, and now either thinks that I am setting up some sort of soup charity donation or that I am trying to blow up the whole district. First some scrawny-looking apes turned up with empty soup bowls demanding free food, and shortly thereafter this crazy ape who called himself Alvin Best showed up with an entire posse. Now, the soup apes I can deal with as the sign outside seems to help, but the death apes are a different breed. I think the leader is the crazy one, the other apes seem mostly into it because the best ape is handing out free beer and sausages, but they make so much noise and they will not leave me alone."
Florimond now had a worried expression as he continued.
"To find a solution I even went out to parley with him, but that proved very difficult as he was only saying things like stay out of my brain, danger ape, and bird on the roof not in the basement. When I tried to reason with him, he yelled invisibility cloak activate, before standing completely still staring forward. I think he really thought I couldn't see him. After this I went back in again. He's been out there ever since."
Having seen the crowd outside for ourselves, we could sympathize with the alien, but we were here to ask about the promised soup and press the issue.
Last time we were here you said you were researching some fantastic soup and that all the lights and sounds were a result of that. Have you gotten any further, and do you have the recipe for us?
Ah, yes, the soup. Now that we have gotten the reverse time module zero energy extractor to be fully operational, it's just a matter of time. Next month we are starting a restaurant in Wright Buildings, you know. Why don't you bring all these apes to the grand opening and soup is on me for the first few days?
Sensing that our question was not being answered honestly, we pressed on.
But how is the machine outside related to the soup? Are you sure you are not up to something more sinister here?
The brown ape flicked his eyes quickly back and forth and answered quickly.
Me? No, I don't think so. We just need some high energy to get the best possible result before the opening. In the meantime, here is our recipe and our menu for the grand opening. Be sure to smoke a cigar and drink 3 glasses of whiskey prior to eating though, it will be much better that way.
With that, he gave us a note and a menu with some soup names and proceeded to push us towards the door. Again, our visit at Holly Hill Avenue seemed to leave us with more questions than answers. At least this time we had gotten our recipe and we were invited to a grand opening, so it seemed we were getting something out of this at least. Before heading back to the Doork East magazine headquarters, we informed the gathering of apes outside that we all had been invited for a 2-day soup party at Wright Buildings next month. The vast majority of the apes gave a loud cheer and proceeded to pack their belongings. The exception was Alvin Best of Death, who proceeded to run around in circles while shouting,
"Alien birds in my mind! Soup is murder! Stop the fish!"
We figured that it was best just to leave at that point. We now left the beam of light, the noise from the apes and the looming darkness as we wandered back and were looking forward to our grand opening of the Alien Soup restaurant next month. Florimond Brown's special soup recipe. Author, Toggen.
Mix 3 glasses of whiskey and consume prior to preparation of soup. 1 cigar is recommended to be smoked while making the soup. Cut 1 onion and some spring onions into smaller pieces. Boil 6 small potatoes in a casserole and add the onion and spring onion. Boil for approximately 25 minutes. Empty the water into a separate casserole. Pour a cup of cream with the potato mix and mash well. Add a tablespoon of strong mustard and some salt and pepper to the mix. Fry up a good amount of bacon and some tasty mushrooms. Add the saved water from the boiling to the mash. Adjust thickness to taste. Add bacon and mushrooms to the mix. Do not add nitroglycerin into the mix, important. Consume mix.
Welcome to the Brown Soup Galactic Taste Sensations. Author, Toggen. Menu. 1. Zero Gravity Splendor. Special ingredients perfect for those on a diet. The more you eat, the more weight you will lose. Ingredients undisclosed. 2. The Blowout. Soup with a mix of the spiciest chilies cultivated. If you need a system clean out, this soup is for you. Do not consume if you are elderly or cannot run to the outhouse very quickly. 3. Nanoparticle Surprise. This soup is made from the lightest materials. You get all the nutrients you need without knowing that you eat soup. P.S. No nanochips to gain control of your mind are added to the soup. 4. The Alien Invincibility Product. A special mix of herbs, spices and metal parts are added in this delicious soup that will make you impervious to pain up to 30 minutes after consumption. Side effects include harmless bubbles coming out of ear for 24 hours. 5. The 13 Dimensions of Soup. Compound of very heavy elements. Slightly radioactive, but mostly safe to consume. If taken correctly, string fabrics and wormholes should be visible for a short while. Do not order if you suffer from paranoid schizophrenia. 6. The Grandfather Paradox. New particles with time-diluting effects are added to this mix of rhubarb and tomato soup. After eating, do not worry if you see yourself eating at another table. This effect is temporary. 7. Florimond Brown Special Soup. Tasty soup with potatoes, bacon and vegetables. Whiskey and cigars are included in the price. No nitroglycerin is added to the mix. The Case of the Unusual Pirate. Author, Toggen. Recently there have been many apes calling in a peculiar observation all over the rectangle of Doork East, from Manor Lane in the south to Warwick Road in the north. It seems a rather loud ape in a pirate hat has been driving a boat-shaped wagon, pulled by a drove of donkeys all around the fields. As it stands, no one can attest to what is going on, so Doork East magazine sent out reporters Ramsey Castillo and Redford White to investigate this occurrence and hopefully get to the bottom of it. As we walked out of the urban areas on Birkbeck Road, we were met with the usual views of crops and cottages reaching as far as the eye could see. Taking in the fresh air and the lovely feeling of being out in the open, we marched south towards Warwick Road to find this pirate everyone was talking about. On the way there we met several apes who had recently spotted a strange vehicle, and the consensus was that we needed to move to the east side of Canmard City Avenue to find our target. Just as promised, we spotted the strangest thing we had seen in a while. A huge sloop-shaped object mounted on 8 gigantic wheels loomed in the distance. It was very easy to spot, as it had a long mast in the middle that must have been at least 15 feet high. It even sported a small quarterdeck in the back. A harness was attached to the front of the sloop and spread out to 10 full-sized donkeys who seemed to drag the abomination forward. We moved closer and shouted out,
Hello! Is anyone there?
After a few attempts, we finally heard some profane sounds coming from underneath the wagon.
Don't just stand there gawking. Help a fellow ape reattach this blasted wheel to my ship.
It seemed that a large root in the road had made the wheel slide off. Immediately, we helped hoist the wheel back in place, and the pirate ape looked at us with a grin and extended his hand.
Floyd Evans here. Privateer in the 1st and only land regiment of the Pirate Brigade.
A land pirate?
We asked, surprised.
We thought that most pirate activity took place on the high seas?
Well, it used to be like that, but pirating is having a tough time as o' late. The military officers are getting stricter with quotas at sea, so we had to start thinking about new business models. A few of the pirates suggested that we try underwater pirating, but that didn't work out very well, as we could not hold our breath for more than a couple of minutes at a time. Next, we tried loading the cannons with pirate apes to shoot them up in the air. There were a couple of problems with that idea. Some apes got shot too far away and never returned. The ones that did come back down reported that nothing of value could be plundered up there, so we quickly abandoned that idea. The only other reasonable suggestion was that we try pirating on land. It was a radical idea, but we figured we'd give it a go. It was then we started the 1st Land Regiment.
You say a regiment. Are there other pirate apes here? We can only see you, and why not just use a regular cart? Why the ship on wheels?
When all the pirate apes had voted for the idea, they swiftly dispersed, and I was the only pirate left in the room. I would also have run, but some funny ape had attached a ball and chain to my leg without me noticing, so it was hard to move. It was then our highest-ranking pirate, Addison de Medici, asked me nicely if I wanted the task. I asked him if I had a choice. He then said that there always is a choice. I could choose if I wanted to keep my teeth in my skull or in my pocket. As I prefer to eat with my teeth firmly attached, I chose to accept the task. As for the ship, it is very clear that it must be like this. You see, there are clear regulations and rules as to what it takes to call yourself a pirate. It's quite simple, really. No ship equals no pirate. We have a brand reputation we must take care of, you know. Appearance and style are everything. If I were to ride up in a cart drawn by horses, other apes probably would think I was running a pirate taxi, and that wouldn't do at all.
Surely there must be quite a lot of problems that you are facing on land that you are not experiencing on the seas?
Oh yes, lads, but I like to call them challenges. One must always try to adapt to the circumstances in the best possible way. For instance, it was very difficult to procure a pet parrot on land, so I thought of alternatives. I tried to capture a few seagulls, but they kept shitting on my shoulder and were making a terrible noise, so that idea was quickly discarded. Pigeons, on the other hand, turned out to make excellent pets. There are plenty of them here, and they will stick around if you just give them enough seeds. They also make for excellent eating, by the way. Other than that, we pirates love a bit of plank walking and keel hauling. It didn't take too much time to realize that these activities are better suited at sea. I am experimenting with a few new ideas, though. Instead of making apes walk the plank, I just whack them over the head with it. It's been working great so far. And for keel hauling, well, just hauling someone after the ship in the mud seems effective enough, really.
It seems you're adopting quite nicely, but how does a pirate on land make money? And how is business?
So far, business is slow, but I think it will pick up as soon as my new business model is kicking in. I have recently tried to sail up to other carts and board them, but this blasted ship keeps getting stuck in the mud, so it's difficult to outsail them. I have managed to ram a few carrot and potato carts, though. The only problem with that is the donkeys seem to eat all the plunder. Seeing that my ship is getting stuck, I have been thinking of finding the busiest intersection for them to block off the road. Apes who want to pass will have to pay a fee. If they don't pay up, it's the plank for them. Wham! My prognosis tells me that it will be most lucrative. If I say that some of the proceeds will go to mending broken carts in the neighborhood, I should also be okay with the military officers, as it would be considered a pro bono affair. A win-win situation if I ever saw one.
Interesting. We are sure the entire district will be thrilled by your benevolence. But tell me, why did you choose Doork East for the Pirate Land Regiment?
Doork East seemed like the best alternative. It's a rural district without too much politics. It's easy to get around in a pirate ship, and the food for the donkeys are practically free as it's growing by the side of the road. Besides, we need to start small. If this expansion is successful, we will spread out to more central areas. It's basically a selective approach to gauge the market potential and interest.
Well, let's see how things are progressing then. Maybe we could have a talk sometime later to get an update on how your pirate business is progressing?
Yes, please come back later. I will give a full tour of the ship for your readers. Hopefully, I can also give a planking demonstration as well.
With that, we bade Floyd Evans a good day and moved away from the strange contraption he called a ship. As we walked away, we could hear more swearing and Floyd shouting,
Full steam ahead, you lousy donkeys. We need to make some money.
Orman Ford of Mariana Heights. Authors, Toggen and Wesley Pluijmert. The offices at Doork East magazine were a mess. Ever since releasing the first edition of the magazine, the apes had not been able to recover. A few of the team members were staring out into the air, panting heavily with bloodshot eyes, while trying to do something productive. Other apes were silently sobbing in a corner while trying to enjoy a fine cigar. The editor-in-chief, Baldwin, gave out a sigh and realized that something needed to be done. As he was browsing through his mail, he suddenly happened on a very colorful card that caught his attention. It read, "Life got you down? Tired of the stressful hustle in the big cities? A visit to Mariana Heights will surely calm you down and bring serenity back to your life. Visit us today, and you will not regret the journey." On the card there was a picture of a stream snaking its way down through an orchard. Surrounding the orchard there were tall mountains on either side, tips covered with milky white snow. The card was signed by an Orman Ford. The chief editor, Baldwin, had made up his mind. Some of his apes needed a vacation. Quickly he called for a staff meeting and informed that he needed 2 volunteers to travel to District 2, Mariana Heights. The task was simple: travel to the area, document what you see and try to find this Orman Ford ape for an interview. The journalist apes seemed thrilled by this prospect, and within seconds all of them had volunteered for the task. As there was only a budget for sending 2 apes, the only fair selection criteria were to have a cigar smoking competition. The first 2 apes to complete a whole cigar would be sent on the assignment. 1 hour later the editorial office was filled with smoke and some apes with a slightly greener complexion on their face. The 2 apes, Ramsey Castillo and Redford White, emerged victorious from the smoke cloud, cigar butt in hand and a victorious grin on their faces. The winners were declared, and they immediately started preparing for the journey ahead. Traveling the northern route by cart crossing the border of Burunt and further into the district of North Sajelf gave Ramsey and Redford quite some time to relax and contemplate. It was not too long, however, before they could glimpse the peaks of the mountains in Mariana Heights. Crossing the border was very smooth, and the Doorks were welcomed by a group of calm-looking border patrol apes. Traveling further into the region, it was clear that this Orman Ford ape knew what he was talking about. The air smelled clean, there were small cozy villages scattered around with only friendly apes, and the nature was stunning. Small creeks were running from the mountainside into grassy meadows. Where the grass stopped, mighty oak trees were reaching far up towards the skies. Here and there the journalists saw several apes with their canvases set up in nature, ready to capture the beautiful surroundings in their paintings. After some time, Ramsey and Redford rode through a vast orchard with apple and pear trees. Stopping for a little stretch and a nibble of the succulent fruits, the apes could hear music coming from somewhere nearby. Mesmerized by the lovely tunes, the apes strolled in the direction of the music. A short walk later the orchard opened to a clearing with a small pond. Around the pond, 6 apes were sitting with their musical instruments, playing tunes for no one in particular. After quietly listening in for a while, the journalists were spotted by the apes who proceeded to take a break from their session. At this time, it seemed appropriate to ask the musical apes if they knew where to find Orman Ford. As luck would have it, Orman was close by. He had also heard the music when strolling through the orchard and had decided to stay for a dance or 2. Now he had gotten thirsty and hungry and had just gone to fetch some food and drinks for all the apes. Half an hour had gone when clanking was heard from between the trees. A fine-looking ape with a brown suit and a well-groomed mustache appeared in the cleaning. He was carrying several jugs of what appeared to be wine as well as a platter with meat and grapes. When he saw that new apes had joined the party, he gave out a welcoming smile and introduced himself as Orman Ford. Seeing that we all got to sit down to enjoy some good company, this seemed to be the right time to interview the Ford ape.
We got your card in Doork East and are very happy to be here. Why were you sending the cards, and what are you trying to tell us about Mariana Heights?
One day when I woke up, I saw a newspaper on my doorstep at 88 Via Nazionale. It was called Doork East Magazine, Volume 1. I had no idea who put it there or why, but I had a great time learning about all the citizens in Doork East. It amazed me how lively the place seemed and how different the apes are that live there. As I said, it was a delight to read, and this amazing gift made me think of how I could give something in return. That's why I created a handmade card with an invitation to come and see how differently things are done in Mariana Heights. Both districts are active in their own way, but here in Mariana Heights the people are more laid back and one with nature. Apes inspire other apes by creating music, dancing together, and sharing food from their farms. If you want to, you could even live in the wild with no care in the world. Art is also a big thing here in District 2. Apes come from all over the world to get inspiration for their masterpieces. Some come from the far end of the world just to learn a few new things. By being here, you instantly get a feeling of freedom and acceptance. The apes here love to connect, share, and inspire using art as a medium. My gift to the Doork East citizens is to show this in person.
The nature of this place is stunning. Is this a district where apes should come for their vacation, or do you see it as a place where they should live and enjoy their arts?
Both. Going on a holiday in Mariana Heights is the best way to relax and take a break from the harsh realities of life. Friendly apes all around are ready to share their art in ways unimaginable for city apes. Just take a step back and enjoy the landscape. Climb a mountain, take a walk in the meadows, or learn all about an art form you were always interested in. Mariana Heights is a place to feel free and accepted. Art is a form of freedom. Apes use that freedom and their emotion to write the best song possible and share this with other like-minded ape artists. They enjoy life by performing for others. If you are free to do whatever you like without boundaries, would you not enjoy it?
So far, we have only seen friendly smiling apes in this place. It seems they are very much content with their lives here. Can you expand on why this is?
The apes that live in Mariana Heights are happy. There are no rules, no boundaries, or attachments. Just the joy of life and doing what you love the most. If you can do this with apes that share the same passion, you would be smiling too. But there seems to be something in the air in Mariana Heights that gives the apes that little extra joy. I don't know if it's the beautiful landscapes or the delicious food, the peaceful nature or the sound of laughter and joy. No one knows, but I do know it is something magical.
While listening to Orman speak as we enjoyed our wine and food, it was clear that our stress and worry from the busy magazine schedule quietly faded away in this place. It was hard to say if it was the nature, the apes, or something completely different, but as alluded by Orman Ford, it was probably a combination of all these things that made Mariana Heights a special place to be. As the sun was setting, the apes started playing their music again, and we couldn't resist the urge to join in on the song and dance. The many moons were shining down on the pond and cast clear reflections, making it appear as even more apes had joined the party. This scene continued until the early hours when all the apes finally settled in for some sleep. Waking up the next day to a refreshing breeze and warming sunshine, Ramsay and Redford bade Orman farewell and started preparing their return to Doork East. They all agreed that the trip was well worth it, and they were already looking forward to their next visit. Some time later, Ramsay and Redford were back to work at the Doork East magazine desk. The hustle and bustle of the job looked to have remained, but having had the vacation in Mariana Heights, the apes felt reinvigorated and ready to give it their full attention again without feeling the crushing stress of tight deadlines and nagging superiors. A note asking to procure a company cabin in District 2 for the benefits of all Doork East magazine apes was slid into the suggestion box at the office of Editor-in-Chief, Ramiro Baldwin. After all, a stress-free ape is a productive ape. Citizens of Doork East, Merchant Garfield Ventucci. Author, Toggen. In this series of articles, we will visit locals in and around Doork East who have contributed to the diverse and thriving community that we are. First up, we wanted to pay a visit to Garfield Ventucci. This merchant will need no further introduction. Most of our readers have no doubt run into this clever salesman at every public event, or even street corner at some point in recent weeks and months. It seems wherever there is a possible sale of some kind, Ventucci turns up with the goods as if by some strange magic. Having set up shop at 18 Melendez Way in one of the busiest areas of Doork East, Mr. Ventucci is sure to attract all potential customers passing by. We sent over reporter Redford White to investigate and instigate an interview with Mr. Ventucci. Standing outside the cottage in Melendez Way, it is plain to see that this is a place where you go to procure items. Large signs with red letters are scattered around the entire property. Buy your fish here, mostly fresh, slightly used produce, great prices, miracle medicine to cure most ails. In the yard, there seem to be endless shelves and cabinets stocked to the brim with all kinds of items from swords to umbrellas. Indeed, it seems Mr. Ventucci had a major emporium set up for himself. Inside the cottage, I spotted the telltale sign of Ventucci with his well-groomed mustache, thick glasses and feather poking out from behind his ear.
Welcome to my humble store. What can I get you today? We have 50% off on used grapes, great prices on unicorn horns, or would you perhaps be interested in this time machine we have out back?
Wow, those are some interesting items, but it seems a bit weird. Why would I want used grapes? And I am sure that unicorns and time machines don't even exist.
Now I am offended, sir. No need to question my excellent goods. As for the grapes, I confess they are a bit raw, as they have previously been chewed on by some horses in Burundi, but the way I see it they are now fermented and will make a great beverage. What do you say, 75% off? As for the unicorn, I admit that it might seem a bit of a tough sale. I figured out that most apes don't really look at the goods before they purchase, so what I did was that I glued a cob of corn to a goat's horn, and presto, unicorn horn. I have received over 50 mail orders for them from all over the Ape Society. At 200 society per horn, that makes for a great profit, don't you think? Oh, and the time machine is also quite ingenious. You see, I don't say that it will travel back in time. It's more or less an outhouse, well, exactly like an outhouse to tell you the truth, but it does travel forward in time. It just depends on how long you sit there.
I think I'll pass then. Won't customers get angry if they feel they have been tricked?
No, sir, I only sell what I advertise. I have a no-refund policy, but they can trade the items back to me should they not be 100% satisfied. This is reasonable for all parties, don't you think? I don't know if you saw the sign outside that said slightly used produce. Well, what happens is that people buy the time machine and realize it's too heavy to carry. They then try it out and leave behind a dropping or two, waiting for the machine to do something. I then collect the droppings and leave it in a pile to compost. The buyer of the time machine can then trade the time machine back to me for the slightly used produce. It's the perfect circular economy, and I facilitate it for a very small profit.
So, you have found a way for people to pay for their own shit?
That's a very cynical way of looking at it, don't you think? I look at it as a business venture where buyer and seller are equally happy with the business transaction. Not once have I bent the rules in any way. You can rest assured that you can always trust Garfield Ventucci to tell the truth and give you the best deal on anything, always. If not, I'll give you a free donkey.
That's very reasonable of you, I must say, a great gesture indeed. Donkeys are expensive.
Indeed, imagine the surprise on their faces when they see that the donkey has been dead for 4 weeks.
Well, I must say that you really have made a name for yourself. Most people in Doork East know about your business, and you still have time to set up stands all over the area when things are taking place. Is business generally good, and how do you find the time to be everywhere?
Business is how you make it. Find a market and find a buyer. That's my motto in life. I started this shop a long time back and have built it up by bartering in honest and transparent ways. Now I have too many items though. You should see the basement. I have already dug out 10 sublevels just to find room for all the goods. When I tried to dig for the 11th level, I kept hearing strange sounds, so I had to stop. Now I never venture down lower than the 5th sublevel though. Once I stored a zombie ape down on level 6 or level 7 some years ago. I forgot him for over a year, so I imagine he is rather angry at me now. If you want some good deals on zombie insurance, I'll give you the key to the cellar. Only $100 society. If the zombie kills you, I'll pay you back $10,000 society. What do you say?
Pass.
Oh well, I still think it's a good deal. Anyway, the store is more like a hobby to me now. There are great profits to be had by traveling around in the district peddling goods. I have made a deal with apes across the district. That if they see a gathering of apes, they are to report here and tell me what is going on. In return, I give them my patented aphrodisiac tonic. It's mostly potato water with a few mushrooms in it, but they seem happy enough. An ape in Barunt called Patton Thompson endorsed it, so they can't say it's not patented. But I digress. When the apes give me the location and event, I quickly gather the right items and hop on my wagon. Here last month, I managed to sell more than 20 shovels in Regent Place after it was rumored someone had buried their diamond grills. Even at 200% markup, they sold like hotcakes. Good times. Last week, I traveled down south and sold this pirate ape wheels and axles to mount on his homemade ship cart. I gave him a guarantee that if the wheels fell off, he would get the money back. I didn't say I personally would give him the money back, mind. Haven't heard anything yet.
That's amazing. It's a good thing that the apes in Doork East can always rest assured that all their needs can be fulfilled by visiting you or your shop. It's been nice talking to you, Mr. Ventucci. I am sure we see each other soon again in the streets somewhere.
You are most welcome, sir. Are you sure I can't tempt you on your way out by our catch of the day? Fresh fish, 75% off? It was freshly caught just yesterday in a dumpster in South Zam Street. Can't beat the price or the smell. Deal of the week, 90% off?
Before Mr. Ventucci could offer even more amazing deals, it was time to jog off quickly. One can only but admire his energy and creativity in creating business opportunities in the Doork East market. It's good to have apes like him around. Real estate update from Osmin Baldwin. Author, Toggen. Once again, it's time to get a comment on the Doork East housing market from our beloved military officer turned real estate agent, Mr. Osmin Baldwin. Our resident reporter, Ramsey Castillo, was sent over to get the latest take. Walking into the office at Birkbeck Road, Ramsey noticed several pictures of Osmin hanging all over the waiting room. Each one had a text below them stating Employee of the Month. There appeared to be at least 15 copies of the exact same picture showing a smiling ape holding a check for 100 society in his hand. After a short 5-minute wait, Ramsey was ushered into the main office and began to speak to Mr. Baldwin.
Mr. Baldwin, last time we spoke, the housing market in Doork East was on fire. How are things looking now?
Osmin quickly jumped up, drew his sword and looked around nervously.
On fire? Where did you hear that? I had nothing to do with any fires, I can assure you.
Taking a few steps back, Ramsey tried to defuse the situation quickly before it escalated further.
Relax, it was just a figure of speech. I was just commenting on how well the housing market seems to fare. Has the trend continued over the summer?
Good.
Osmin sheathed his sword and gave a wide grin, exposing his golden teeth.
I thought you had heard something about the fire in the fields at Manor Lane. That sure was a fortunate event though, so many apes from Fragate East have since expressed interest in properties here. The fumes must have convinced them somehow. Let it be recorded that we did not have any involvement in the incident. As for the rest of the market, I couldn't be happier. We are very stable with between 10 and 15 properties constantly listed for sale. The prices keep going up, but the demand for good homes in Doork East is also on the rise.
That is excellent news. We have seen a great influx of apes moving into Doork East the last couple of months. It must be motivating to see. But with the prices going up and the properties getting scarcer, are you not afraid that this will affect your ability to make fees on sales?
Osmin raised his eyebrows and tapped his nose while leaning forward.
Between you and me, there are several tricks of the trade that can be employed. Certain high-ranking officials in Doork East have expressed a desire to see more quality apes moving into the district. If we see cabins being run down and apes are not paying too much attention to their property, it might be that they will find a letter in their mailbox with a picture of a dynamite stick, the number 2500 and the word "sell now." If they don't contact our office asking to list the cottages for 2500 the same day, they might find that a dynamite stick will go off in their outhouse at 3 a.m. Next day, they might find a new letter with 2 dynamite sticks, the number 2000, and the word "sell now." A few times we have gotten sales as low as 200, boy we certainly heard a loud bang that night. By that time, the apes usually crawl and smelling awfully bad and shaking violently. They are then very eager to sign the sales contract. Quite often they are in an awful hurry to leave afterwards. We get a small commission, the apes move to Westborough, South Zam, or somewhere far off, and we get some new quality apes moving in. The way I see it, it's a win for all.
Shaking his head, Ramsey looked up with a sad expression.
Those poor apes, that sounds horrible. Are you blasting their outhouse with dynamite?
Oh no, I would never do such a thing of course, but we are sponsoring the Dynamite Guild of Jictus and their annual beer drinking competition. The letters and dynamite are purely coincidental. No relation to us, no one can prove anything.
I see. Anything else you want to add to the real estate update?
It's fair weather all around, nothing major to report. We did have a successful campaign in Brodaw before the summer. The nice letter with the skull and crossbones certainly seemed to help. Just look at the number of properties for sale up there. Haha, they sure could use an agent like good old Osmin to shake things around in that area, but that is their problem, not mine.
Ramsey proceeded to thank Osmin for the update, shook his hand and left his office. By the front door the mail had just arrived. 3 boxes with the warning "Careful, explosives" were stacked neatly in front of the door. The return address seemed to indicate that it came from Jictus. Purely coincidental, Ramsey thought as he wandered back to the Doork East magazine headquarters.
Dork of the Month. Curious Characters of Doork East. Author, Toggen. Doork East has a wide variety of famous apes. Some would also argue that a few of the Doork apes fall under the category of infamous. Very few, if any, fall under both categories at the same time. The exception to this would have to be Crepin Wright, who has a complicated rise to fame within the Doork East community. Today, we will take a closer look at the background of this unfortunate ape and shed some light on his path to failure and success. Crepin Wright was always interested in science and how to apply it practically to make the world a better place. As a young ape, he would spend most of his afternoons deeply engulfed in books ranging from mathematics, natural science, and engineering principles. He felt that all apes should strive for a better community, and that teamwork was the best solution to advance ape civilization. When in school, Crepin Wright would always invent games for the other apes to play during recess. He would study techniques for making vegetables and fruit grow bigger and share the harvest with his classmates. The only problem that Crepin Wright had was that he could not concentrate on one subject for a long time. He was constantly going from one book to the next and one subject to the other. This unfortunately resulted in him only remembering about 90% of what he read, leading to some very unfortunate consequences later in his life. Having finished school with top grades, Crepin Wright went on to buy a cabin in Doork East. He would fill it from floor to ceiling with manuscripts, books, and countless studies that he had performed during his younger years. At this point in his life, he was completely sure that his calling was to invent new applications and contraptions for the good of all apes. It did, however, not take long for him to realize that inventing things does not pay there and then. Society would only be paid out after the inventions were complete. His continuous depleting stock of bananas was a sober reminder that good intentions do not pay the bills. Fortunately for Crepin, it had been an unusually cold winter in Doork East, and most of the apes had been freezing their fur off in their poorly insulated cabins. To make sure that the apes were prepared for the next period of cold weather, the acting district assistant mayor of Doork East had proposed to issue a prize of 10,000 society for the best solution to this problem. Crepin immediately started working on this issue while dreaming of helping his fellow apes. The prize was also a great motivation, as that much society would supply him with food and books for several years to come. Having great knowledge in all aspects of science, Crepin quickly mixed a brew of various chemicals. The substance would remain liquid when slightly heated, but when applied to surfaces it would very quickly set and create an airtight seal. Trying it out in his own cabin yielded extremely good results. No draft came through and the surroundings felt nice and warm. Feeling proud of his achievement, Crepin invited the acting district assistant mayor and other apes from the district to marvel at his invention. It only took a few minutes before the delegation realized that they had a winner. Crepin was awarded a check for his effort, and the acting district assistant mayor commissioned him to make 300 barrels of the insulation for distribution around the district. Now ecstatic that his work had finally paid off, the order was completed within a few days. The acting district assistant mayor had ordered that the cabins of Manor Lane would be the first to receive the insulation treatment. Crepin was to oversee the job, and he started the task at hand with great enthusiasm. The whole of Manor Lane was set up within hours, and all the apes in the street cheered on the work of Crepin. Exhausted from the effort, he went home that evening to relax and celebrate. As most apes do when commemorating, Crepin lit a cigar and poured a glass of whiskey. Just as some embers from his cigar flew off and hit the wall, a large explosion was heard several streets away. After the smoke and debris had settled, Crepin was standing in a pile where his cabin used to be, cigar in hand and a puzzled expression on his face. After regaining composure, he quickly deduced that something might have been off with the insulation and that Manor Lane might have the same problem that he faced. He quickly rushed down to see if he could stop the potential disaster, but unfortunately, he was too late. All the other apes were having the same cigar idea, and now most of the cabins in the street had vanished in a series of explosions. Crepin was shattered. He only wanted to help but had ended up making a whole street of apes homeless. The acting district assistant mayor was outraged, and the wider crowd of apes was furiously upset. Crepin was arrested on charges of gross incompetence but was only held in custody for 2 days. It turned out that some Fragged East apes had examined the material and found it to be of exceptional quality for use in their mines. They were so pleased with it that they offered to pay 10,000 society per barrel. With the huge profits, all the apes in Manor Lane received new and improved cabins, and the whole district made a ton of money. When released, Crepin was given a parade and a medal from the district. All charges were dropped, and he could go back to his inventions. Sadly, the society he had saved was needed for rebuilding his own cabin, and he could not remember how he made the explosives, as the trauma from being sent to prison had made him forget the manufacturing process. This left both the Fragged apes and the acting district assistant mayor very disappointed. Being broke, he needed new ideas. Fortunately, he never lacked imagination and quickly came up with an idea that he thought would bring some much-needed joy back to the district. Everyone needed a good drink now and again, but what if he came up with a special drink that made you feel even more happy? Well, he had studied countless books on botany and knew well the medicinal effects of herbs, so he came up with a great new recipe. If he mixed vodka with fermented fish oil, wormwood, crab apples and some beeswax, it was sure to do the trick. He made a few samples, and the effect was better than he anticipated. He was giddy and happy and was ready to brew a larger batch. Upon gathering the needed wormwood and the crab apples, he noticed that quite a lot of flies and other bugs were nibbling on his stock. Quickly, he mixed some ingredients and sprayed the stock to solve these problems. At that time, he didn't know that it would completely alter the composition of his brew and have disastrous effects on the final product. 3 big barrels of the vodka brew had been completed, and Crepin invited some of the apes in Brown Avenue to sample his wares. It was quite easy to get volunteers for this task, and a good group of about 20 apes had gathered in Crepin's backyard. Drinks were handed out and cups were raised as the apes drank down the brew. At first, they seemed very happy and relaxed, but no more than 5 minutes after the first ape had gulped down the drink, he started some violent retching. First one ape, and then shortly after all the apes were doubled over in pain on the ground. Crepin, who had not sampled the drink, yelled for someone to call the ambulance cart. The cart came shortly after along with the police cart. Crepin was now again thrown into prison, where he was charged with poisoning and attempted murder. As luck would have it, again the prison sentence was short-lived. Just a week after being sent to his cell, a cheering ape turned the key and told Crepin that he was free to leave. Outside the prison, all the poisoned apes stood applauding his release. It turned out that when they examined the area of the retching, all the weeds had completely vanished. When pouring the stuff on another weed, it immediately seemed to disappear. The apes had then been able to sell the remaining 3 barrels to local farmers for an absurd amount of money and were as happy as ever. Before parting, Crepin was given a medal by the brown apes for his efforts. Naturally, they asked if he could make some more, as they sensed a good business opportunity, but due to trauma from the prison sentence, Crepin had forgotten the composition of his weed-killing mix and was unable to reproduce. It was at this time Crepin would get his nickname that would be very well known across Doork East, Dangerous Genius. It seemed now that this pattern would repeat time and time again for poor Crepin. Every time he thought of an invention, it would lead to disaster for him but enrich others. When the dorks had problems with their oranges rotting before they could export, he would come up with a chemical to keep them ripe. By mistake, he managed to pump in a huge amount of liquid sugar instead, and the oranges tasted exceptionally good. Apes from all districts rushed to secure their share, but after some time, when apes in several districts developed diabetes, they sued Crepin and off to prison he went again. Of course, the farmers of Doork East had made so much money that they managed to bail him out and give him a medal for his efforts. The same thing happened when a mole infestation afflicted the farms. Crepin would come up with an elaborate system of valves and pumps to flush out the moles from their burrows. Unfortunately, the pump system worked so well that moles were sent flying all the way to Barunt. The surrounding fields were flooded with water, damaging the farmers' crops. After being sent to prison again, the farmers found out that if you just removed the pump and sent water through the system, irrigation was extremely much more efficient than before, resulting in a much higher crop yield. Again, it was a bailout and a medal. The most well-known invention of Crepin can be seen displayed in the University of Doork East at Birkbeck Avenue. The military officers had commissioned someone to come up with a durable lightweight armor for use in combat. As per usual, Crepin had lost a vial of powder in the alloy mix, with the result that the armor shrank when in contact with body heat. The poor ape who tried the armor on almost suffocated after the outfitting. Fortunately, they managed to pry the ape out of the armor by greasing him up with a cartload of butter. After the ordeal, when they tried to demolish the armor, it seemed that it was completely indestructible. Of course, poor Crepin did not recall what the alloy contained, so they could never replicate it again, but now the armor is placed on display in the university for emergency use. So, if you happen to see Crepin around, it is recommended to have a chat with him, but commission his service at your own risk. If history is any indication for future events, you might regret using this curious ape's inventions. The Origin of Ape Tape and the Venerable Théo Edwards. Author, Toggen. In a modest estate on Martin Lane, a modest ape spends most of his time. More precisely, the address is 96, Martin Lane, and the name of the ape is Théo Edwards. By profession, Théo is a craftsman. Mild-mannered as he is, he can be seen smiling and humming tunes while tinkering with small projects throughout the day. When a customer comes by, he always has time to sit down for a cup of coffee or a good cigar and discuss the events of the day. Some might think of Théo as somewhat slow or dim-witted, but this is not truly the case. Owing to events earlier in his life where a curious Théo ventured too close to an alien craft and mysteriously got frozen solid into a block of ice, the ape now has his good days and his bad days. Regardless of mental state though, he keeps his calm demeanor and is well-liked in the community. The refined apes of the Central District appreciate his attention to detail and will risk the trek up to Martin Lane to procure his signature pool tables. Even the Brotaw apes from up north get along with Edwards as he has been their #1 provider of quality wooden baseball bats for ages. It was not Théo Edwards' daily life of calmly creating furniture in Doork East that would give him his claim to fame, but rather some strange series of events that would turn out to be very fortunate for the Venerable ape. Not long ago, a visitor, Knox de Balboa, had a skirmish with the residents down at Brown Avenue. Without going into too many details, the ape was released from prison and wanted to explore Doork East further. Between Melendez Way and Holly Hill Avenue, Knox de Balboa stumbled upon what looked like an ancient entrance to a cave system leading beneath the district. Eagerly, the ape told the locals about his discovery and was immediately warned by the alien apes not to venture into the caverns to further explore. As the aliens would not give a clear reason for staying out, Knox did not heed the warning and set off with torch in hand to see what he could find. Not long after entering the hollow, he was stopped by a group of alien apes calling themselves the Greens. This was all they were saying as they appeared to be from somewhere distant and did not master the common language too well. Forcefully, Knox was carried outside and held captive. The Greens would not let him go and pointed at their wrecked flying craft. It seemed they wanted Knox to fix it for them. Being an explorer, he tried to explain that they needed a craftsman to mend the ship, but it seemed he was not able to make them understand. At the time, Théo Edwards was taking a stroll on his day off and was wandering in the direction of Victoria Grove. There he aimed to sit in the Central Park, feasting on a fine meal of roast beef and some cold beverages. His plans did not come to fruition, though, as he happened to walk straight into the group of the Greens close to Melendez Way. Seeing Knox furiously waving his arms trying to make the aliens understand, Théo walked up to the group, smiled and asked calmly what the problem was. Seeing Théo Edwards, Knox was immediately relieved and told the whole story of the caverns and the now apparent fragmented ship. Being an able craftsman, Théo walked closer to the ship to assess the damage. He took his time looking while walking around the craft and singing a slow tune. The Greens seemed confused by this attitude but did not intervene. 3 songs and half a cigar later Théo was done with his assessment. He slowly walked back to Knox and explained that the main problem was that the propeller shaft had been fractured. As it was not stiff enough, it would not generate the required thrust to power the ship. Théo explained that if he had all his tools with him, it should be an easy fix. Unfortunately, he did not have anything except his good mood, so it was difficult to help out with the situation. Dejected by this answer, Knox loudly shouted out that he would give anything for a vendor to show up with the required tooling. Knox slumped to the ground and thought he would be stuck there for a long time. Only seconds later, a cart magically pulled out from behind the corner. It was driven by local merchant Garfield Ventucci. He rolled up next to the apes and quickly presented all his wares. On top of the cart a huge sign proclaimed that everything was on sale, 50% off, but the prices on the items seemed extortionately high. Having no time or interest in haggling with Ventucci, Théo browsed through the wares to look for items suitable for fixing the broken shaft. A song later, Theo's head emerged from the stall as he triumphantly held up a roll of tape and grinned towards all the bystanding apes. A confident Théo now walked towards the shaft and wrapped the tape around it, securing it well to the ship. He motioned to Knox and the Greens with a thumbs up and encouraged them to power the ship to see if it was working. Quickly, the Greens jumped on board and started working. The craft began to make loud humming noises and the shaft started to turn. For a minute it looked like everything was going according to plan, but the torque of the shaft was just too much for the emergency repair. It started to wobble, and Théo shook his head and motioned for the Greens to shut it down. It was now obvious that the tape was just not strong enough. The Greens were now wildly looking around and Knox tried to hide his gaze away from the apes. Théo, however, seemed completely relaxed and walked back over to the Ventucci cart to look for further supplies. This time it took 2 songs before his head again appeared over the edge of the cart. He was able to locate pine tree resin, coffee grounds, and cinnamon. Mixing these together into an epoxy mixture, Théo applied the substance to the tape fabric and went back to the ship's shaft. After the epoxy had set, he motioned the Greens again to start up. They did as they were told, and this time it seemed that the repair held up. Théo smiled and this time gave 2 thumbs up to a now more hopeful Knox. The Greens gave a strange cacophony and started pointing at Théo. Ape, 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 and then after some time tape, tape, tape. As the Greens were jumping up and down, the words ape tape were heard in unison. Before leaving, the Greens made some serious-looking faces and sealed both entrances to the caves before flying off. Just as quickly as the aliens were gone, Théo and Knox saw that the Ventucci ape also seemed to have vanished without a trace. When they checked their pockets, they realized that 50% of their money was missing. Relieved that the situation was resolved, Knox shook Theo's hand warmly and wished him all the best for the future. Théo waved him off and was left alone in the street with the substance in one hand and the tape in the other. He smiled to himself and started walking back to his quiet little estate in Martin Lane. Since the encounter with the aliens, Théo Edwards has been making lots and lots of his now patented ape tape. It is known as the strongest tape in the ape society and is sold in all the districts. Théo has made quite a good heap of society from the venture, but it has not affected him in the least. He still walks around in his workshop singing his songs while making the custom pool tables and baseball bats while smiling and chatting to all visitors and passers-by. It's a good life for old Théo Edwards. The passageway under the ape society is closed and there are no open gates to enter. Who were the Greens? What did the Doork East aliens know of the caverns? What is hidden under the central area of Doork East? Will it be ever known? Doork Staking. Author, Toggen. It was an exciting day. Théo Best was standing in his cabin at Sutherland Place, firmly fixating on his mirror image. It had to look perfect, the attire, the bells, the colorful hat. He had been preparing for this day for weeks now. It was the annual Robot Morris Dancing Fair of Doork East. All the major robots from the larger districts were coming. This year, Théo had been upgrading his most prized instrument, his accordion. He had managed to make it sound more metallic and was sure the movers and shakers in the Morris Dancing League would be very impressed. At heart, Théo was an artist. He loved playing instruments and dancing, but ever since he was a small ape, he had been extremely fascinated by his robot origin. It was therefore not too surprising that he was always trying to make things just a little better through technological improvements. In fact, when he was not working, he could usually be found in the workshop with his best friend Spencer Smith. Spencer did not share Theo's interest in Morris dancing, or any dancing for that matter. He was most content when playing around with old relics that he had been collecting from the aliens and robots. Metal parts, wires, and consoles. Advanced parts that could be tinkered with and upgraded. Of course, most of this technology was unknown to the apes, but together Théo and Spencer had been able to find some interesting components. One of these was a magnetic part that, when fastened to Theo's head, would make some static sounds and emit faint voices. Both the apes were very proud of this discovery, and as such Théo would wear this device when going Morris dancing. At last, content with his outfit, Théo was jumping away, bells ringing, towards the fair at Victoria Grove. He had to move fast, as some heavy winds were sweeping over the central parts of Doork East. A storm was approaching, and it would not be good to soak his accordion before arriving at the fair. With a fast pace and some more ringing of bells, he arrived without incident and received a brotherly welcome by his fellow robot apes. Unfortunately, the good mood for the robots would not last. Shortly after arrival, each of the Morris dancers were handed metal sticks and would then proceed to rehearse their new dance by moving in circles around the flagpole in the backyard of the fairground. This was done with all the apes touching the pole with their sticks. Disaster struck as the flagpole was hit by a bolt of lightning, scattering the robot apes around and short-circuiting them all. Apes were strewn everywhere. Some were shaking violently, while others were flailing their arms and legs uncontrollably. Poor Théo was also part of the carnage, but something strange happened while he was laying there helpless, waiting for assistance. The device he had planted on his head started making sounds. Clear sounds. Théo couldn't move, so all he could do was to lay still and listen. The sounds were telling him about blockchains, about Cardano, and how to set up a staking pool. He was told that it was of utmost importance for the stability of the system that he understood what to do. He was told exactly what he needed, how to set up a pool, and that he needed to attract stakers to make blocks. This message was repeated again and again. After some time, Théo would remember each word by heart and was convinced this message was for him specifically and that it was his mission to act on it. Some 48 hours later, all the robots had received service and were back to themselves. The sounds in Theo's head were slowly fading as he came back to himself. After gathering his things, he quickly ran out from the fairground. He needed to tell Spencer about this amazing experience as soon as possible. Sometime later, Théo and Spencer had managed to set up operations in their workshop at Taylor Avenue. Spencer had been told about the device and the strange messages and was very much in favor of helping his dear friend set up his staking pool. Due to the collection of rare and exotic wares that Spencer had accumulated over the years, the two apes managed to find the exact parts they needed to set up the pool. The one thing that was missing was the delegation part. The two apes did not really know how to best approach this concept, but Théo had heard in the messages that delegators would earn society by doing so. Both apes agreed that other apes would very much be interested in earning money, so the best way to do things would be to advertise. Being a craftsman, Spencer made a nice big wooden sign that they hung up over their workshop. Earn society today, delegate to our staking pool and receive great rewards. The sign looked nice as it was gleaming in the sunlight towards the street. The letters were big and white, so it was easy for bystanders to spot. Not long after the sign had been erected, a small gathering of apes had accumulated outside. They were discussing among themselves and scratching their heads as they pointed towards the workshop. Soon after, the group seemed to scatter rather quickly, and the street was empty again. In hindsight, both Théo and Spencer realized that the communication on the advertisement could have been somewhat clearer. The problem was that no other ape had heard of a blockchain other than the old relic up at Kingswood Road. They knew even less about delegation. What happened was that the morning after the apes had congregated outside the workshop, they returned knocking loudly at the door. The first ape had dragged along a big barbecue and a sack of coal, thinking that they had made a small spelling error and needed help cooking meat. Behind him was a group of apes carrying shovels, asking loudly where they wanted their pool dug out. There was even a donkey cart in the road with lots of stakes demanding money for delivering stakes for a garden fence. When 3 more apes showed up at the back door wearing swimming pants and plungers, the 2 poor apes closed both doors and windows to escape the commotion. Both Théo and Spencer were clever apes, but they were not too sure how they should handle the situation. After some internal discussion and deliberation, they figured that if they would just wait inside the cabin for long enough, all the apes would probably become bored and leave. At that point, they could remove the sign and try a different approach. Sitting inside the closed cabin working on their stake pool and other odd jobs, the apes could hear the noise of the group outside. The racket continued long into the night and eventually the two apes fell asleep at their desks. Walking up the next morning, Théo noticed that everything was quiet. He nudged Spencer awake and carefully proceeded to open the back door. The apes seemed to have disappeared, but what they saw shocked them both. A pool filled with water and even a diving board had appeared in their backyard. A small patio had been built next to the pool where a barbecue had been assembled with what looked like brick and mortar. Around the pool a big red fence had been erected and painted in rather nice red and white colors. Théo and Spencer were puzzled and walked close to the pool. To their horror they found a big pile of paper lodged under a stone by the barbecue. It contained several rather large invoices for everything from transport of goods, digging of the pool, mason work, paintbrushes and test meat for barbecue. The total amount of the invoices was close to 10,000 society. It seemed the two pool operators now had to quickly round up some money to pay for the new luxuries in their backyard. Their effort to get apes to stake to their pool had only gotten them in debt. Where should they get the money to pay for this? Maybe you can help Théo and Spencer? Please consider staking to Doork Staking Pool to help the dedicated apes pay their bills so they don't have to sell their cabin. Back to Business School, Alien Business Model. Author, Toggen. Wheat and tobacco production are the primary industries of the Skyview Avenue agricultural scene. The hills and fields make it an ideal place for growing crops. As a means of diversification, some apes have taken inspiration from the farmers over at Jictus and have elected to keep cattle over growing crops. For a time, the farmers have been quite content at selling their cattle over at the neighboring district markets for a good society return. However, curious events of late have been causing confusion and complaints from the farmers. It's no secret that the aliens are behind the problems. About once a week, a scruffy-looking craft can be seen hovering over the fields before projecting a beam down to the turf below. Some coughing from the engines and some squeaking from the cogs, and swoosh, the hapless cows are sucked into the craft. Before flying off, the aliens beam down a note that reads "Sorry for the cow." This note is good for one cow equivalent of society once the business is set up and running. The cattle farmers were able to pin the location of the aliens to the east side of Brown Avenue and had several times tried to reason with them and get their remuneration sorted out, but to no avail. A local farmer, Mr. Wilfred Maddock, said this: "We went over to the aliens after we tracked down their craft. We were met with the strangest sight. It looked like the aliens had some sort of party, but they did not look particularly happy. 4 of them were sitting in a hot tub that had a strange pink glow to it. Several billboards with odd slogans were pinned on posts around the area. When we asked for our money that they owed us, they told us to bugger off. They said they were working on a business plan and that they had been studying ape-eating patterns. Apparently, the aliens had run out of money due to the high maintenance fee of their flying crafts. Now they were going to start up a business involving cows, glowing pink liquids and a good slogan. After they had conjured up an idea, we would get our money back as well as an exclusive deal on supplying more cows. Of course, we were not content with the situation as IOUs don't pay our bills, but what could we do? I mean, the aliens are scary looking, and who knows what they can do to a simple farmer ape. The aliens seem to be inspired by fellow alien Florimond Brown Soup venture. Money could no doubt be made supplying sustenance to fellow hungry apes, but it remained to be seen if the market and product research of the alien apes would result in something substantial or if it would turn out to be a complete flop.
Public announcements. Authors, Toggen and Svesen.
New restaurant. Join us at our new restaurant in Wright Building's Central Square. The Brown Soup Galactic Taste Sensations will have its grand opening 1 month from now. Marvel at the best tastes of the universe and experience out-of-this-world service. All survivors will receive a 20% discount on subsequent visits. This restaurant will literally blow you into space. Florimond Brown Soup Specialist.
Join the revolution. Aliens. They are everywhere and they are here to harvest our brains. They want to track us and enslave us. We need to stand up and find out what they are doing. Join Doork East Association of Terrestrial Hazards, Death, today to be part of a revolution. All new members will receive free Apetember beer and sausages when joining an alien protest. They can't stand many colors. Birds are in the rock. Fish fly through grass. Contact Alvin Best in South Sam Street for details on recruitment. Alvin Best, Chairman and Head Fruit Basket of Death.
Yard sale. Yard sale at Benton Street. Need new chairs for your cabins? Here at the Military Officers Depot we have all kinds of models and brands. Stock is overflowing and everything must go. From 20 to 80% off retail prices. Wholesale or retail. We welcome all customers. No looting from fellow military officers, please, they will only end up in the same place. Contact Brinley Baldwin for good prices. Brinley Baldwin, Military Officer.
Luxury items. Brown Avenue Classics specializes in top hats, offering the largest collection of antique silk hats in the ape world. Antique silk top hats are considered the pinnacle of beauty and elegance because of their impressive shine, shape, and lightness, which is second to none. Made from a unique de Medici silk plush with a long nap, it has a beautifully polished look we recognize today. The looms that made this fabric are no longer in existence, and general production has ceased. As a result, those in a pristine condition or a larger size can be very rare and fetch higher prices. All hats are supplied with a complimentary BAANK Dorks top hat box and velvet polishing pad. Come visit our luxury boutique on Brown Street in the Dorks. Our proprietor, Bray Green, is frequently on site to welcome weary patrons and share cigars and whiskey in our luxury cabin lounge. Brown Avenue Classics, Infinite Vault.
Letter of complaint from the mayor's office in Fragate East. To whom it may concern. It pains me to write this complaint to the otherwise fine apes of Doork East, but recent events have made some serious complications for the productiveness of our miner workers at Rowan Terrace and Williams Place. After the crop fire last week at Manor Lane, the winds have been blowing south, making any and all progress in the open pit mines close to impossible due to the fumes. Some of our miners are giggling all the time while pointing at each other, while the majority are climbing to the highest points trying to inhale as much of the fumes as possible. I implore our dear neighbors in Doork East to either grow different kinds of crops close to the Fragate East borders, or move the fire department from Victoria Grove closer to our border. Mining Corporation of Fragate East and Addison Cortez, Fragate East Mayor.
Cabin refurbishment. Need your cabin refurbished? Looking for new and exciting furniture? Well, look no further. Contact Wheaton Brown of 65 Scrubs Lane, Tasima City for consultation today. All your interior design and decorating worries will be taken care of. Best service guaranteed at reasonable rates. Wheaton Brown, Bespoke Furnishings, Tasima City.
Potholes. Apes from Mason Court all the way down to South Sam Street have reported potholes to the District Fire Department the last few days. The holes are appearing suddenly, and sometimes smoke is emanating from within. Since the holes only appear to be approximate 1 feet in diameter, no ape can get in to see what is causing this anomaly. Lowering ropes down to see how deep they are has yielded no results. They seem to go on forever. The fire department urges apes in the areas to be careful and vigilant when walking close, as they have no idea what is causing this for the time being. Doork East Mayor's Office.
Public apology from Blade Wilson. I would humbly like to apologize for causing such a mess with the marbles at Walnut Street a couple of months back. When seeing the public announcement in Doork East magazine issue 1, I felt really bad for the poor ape who were stuck in the outhouse. As I also filled your jam jars with laxatives, I will suggest giving him a few teaspoons of that. It should sort out the first problem. Blade Wilson, prankster and craftsman. Weather forecast. Gray clouds are gathering over Doork East. It smells like a big storm is coming. Experts warn not to leave the house. The esteemed professor of meteorology at D University is baffled as it defies his predictions. Everyone is advised to stock up on bananas, cigars and whiskey and stay at home for the next few days. He reluctantly remembers the great storm last year after which King Monet's crown was found on the spire of the church. Wesley Taylor, Professor of Meteorology, Doork East University.
Unusual series of burglaries in Doork East. For quite some time now, cases of burglaries have been taking place in our beautiful Doork East. Independently, several witnesses reported seeing two figures near the crime scenes. The merchant Claire Ventucci said he spotted a suspicious duo of an ape accompanied by a raccoon walking across the marketplace early Saturday morning with large filled bags on their backs. According to unconfirmed rumors, small cards were left at the crime scenes. This information has not yet been officially confirmed by the Doork East Police Department. But our sources, who wish to remain anonymous, have leaked one of these cards to us. For any information, please contact the police department. Pel Baldwin.
Doorkness Contest, Doorky Questions. Author, Toggen. The Doork East University at Birkbeck Road is stocked to the brim with manuscripts, books, tomes and parchments containing everything from old Doork history to important lore. One late evening a very eager but unfortunate young student was intensely studying different aspects of the rich history of our district. Disaster struck at 4 a.m. when the misfortunate ape fell asleep in the main hall of the library. Generally, this would not pose a big problem, but at the time he was busy smoking a rather impressive stogie. The result was that the ape fell on his desk, cigar in mouth, setting fire to certain important documents. The next day Chancellor Brent Monet called in all the senior professors for an urgent meeting to assess the damage. The consensus was that the damaged documents were now unreadable and regrettably the information was lost from the university records. After much discussion in the group, the conclusion was that new records had to be written, but they would need to consult the wise residents of Doork East to get the correct answers. A bounty of 12,000 society was set aside for assuring that the general public would show up and help the university with the task at hand. The questions posed to the public were as follows. 1. Why is there a powerful electric field around that big machine the aliens built on Holly Hill Avenue? 2. Why do apes at Kingswood Road climb on top of their cabins each summer solstice and yell "We see you from up here"? 3. What made the Clock Museum at Melendez Way such a great landmark for the Doorks? 4. What makes the wheat taste so much wheatier in Doork East? 5. Why do apes at Regent Place have an annual beard and top hat festival during winter? The feedback from the Doork East community was phenomenal. In total, 51 answers came in by mail to the university. To the puzzlement of the professors, they saw that there were vastly different answers to each question, and of course this posed a new problem. The professors carefully read through all the proposals and did some reference checking to other lore from the district. After many weeks the results were in, and they could proudly present the winning answers to the public. To further involve the Doork apes, the university would let the community vote for the best answer. First place would be 6,000 society, second place 3,000, and the rest would be shared by the other contestants. Up until the last moment there was a three-way tie, and to the amazement of the professors one of the winners voted against himself to give the winnings to his competition. It warmed the hearts of all professors to see such selfless behaviors from the Doork East residents. It shows that the apes in the district look after each other, and that makes Doork East the best place in the ape society. The winning contributions. 1. Why is there a powerful electric field around that big machine the aliens built on Holly Hill Avenue? Author, Sanford Ford, tied second place.
If you ask any alien, they will say, "What electric field? I don't know what you're talking about, hey look over there," and then the aliens would run into the forest. But we all know that the electric field is protecting their underground brewery, where they make beer that not only makes you lightheaded and dizzy but can help you communicate with other worlds. The aliens are very protective of this beer because they don't want it to get into the hands of a mischievous ape that will only use this communication method to prank call other worlds, asking if their refrigerator is running, etc. The aliens know that if this occurs, other worlds may start an interstellar war out of sheer annoyance.
2. Why do apes at Kingswood Road climb on top of their cabins each summer solstice and yell, "We see you from up here"? Author, Cryptolady, first place.
The summer solstice in Doork East marks a significant time of the year. For many apes in Doork East, it's a day of leisure, a day to be outside and enjoy the summer air. The streets from Victoria Grove down to South Zam Street are abuzz with apes enjoying the evening markets and fried banana treats filling the air with its sweet aroma. Now up north in Kingswood Road, well, one would be very confused if you were new to the district. For as the rest of the dorks down south are enjoying the festivities that seem to linger each summer solstice, the dorks up north experience is more immersive and intense, for somehow the air around Kingswood Road smells and feels different this time of the year. There have been many theories on why this happens, but for the residents at Kingswood Road, they have found that climbing to higher ground allows them to communicate with these unknown forces that pass each year through the district. Each year, in what seems to be a fleeting moment of clarity, the apes have been able to communicate on some strange level, and with time not only was the communication verbal, but it's rumored that the unknown forces become more comfortable and revealed themselves. This excited the apes, and you would hear them shouting from atop their cabins, "We see you from up here."
3. What made the Clock Museum at Melendez Way such a great landmark for the dorks? Author, Tranter Roberts, tied second place.
The Doork East Museum of Timekeeping was started by accident. A skilled furniture specialist created a beautiful series of large mahogany case timers, in the form of full and half-height grandfather clocks that counted backwards. Word was slowly getting around that these were coming to market, and a significant interest was growing from potential customers, keen to display these in their homes and places of work. After a few months, around 30 of these had taken pride of place inside cabins across the district, and demand for new orders was escalating at an unprecedented scale. The levels of interest that these devices were generating soon reached the unwanted attention of the upper echelons of society, and it was feared military officers would imminently be dispatched to commandeer them. A plan was devised to place them into hiding in a remote corner of the map where they could be safe from any looting. So it was, one cold evening, under the cover of darkness, the clocks were carefully carried one by one through the streets to a secret location, well hidden from prying eyes. What hadn't been anticipated was the collective levels of noise generated by multiple timepieces, all whirring away together at a single location that had little soundproofing. Environmental health was called to investigate complaints from residents who couldn't sleep due to a relentless cacophony of hourly chimes and whirring gears. It didn't take long for dissent to spread, and the town council were forced into action as more and more irate residents deluged the postal service with complaints. To uphold the peace, a bylaw was enacted that stipulated clocks could make no noise between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. These regulations represented a serious problem for the owners, as these clocks, by virtue of the fact they were counting backwards, didn't follow a traditional 24-hour cycle. In fact, they had no awareness of any time at all, they purely counted backwards from today's date. Any non-compliant device was to be destroyed within 30 days. By this time there were several hundred of these clocks in circulation, including various counterfeit and other low-cost unauthorized replicas that had found their way onto the market. Something had to be done fast. A campaign was started to save the clocks, and the Doork East Horology Society was born. Representations to the authorities were made, and a clever outline plan was drawn up to house all the clocks in a single soundproofed non-residential location, where owners could visit their possessions freely without recrimination. After much wrangling, a venue was chosen, and all the clocks were moved to their current home, arranged gallery style with the name of the owner and month of purchase proudly inscribed below on a brass plaque. Today the Malanda's Way Clock Museum holds the finest collection of backward-counting clocks on the map, and is a hugely popular attraction visited regularly by owners, enthusiasts and admirers alike.
4. What makes the wheat taste so much wheatier in Doork East? Author, Crispy Doork Staking, 5th place.
Because all other wheat stems from the original wheat strains which are sourced from Doork East. Doork East's wheat is the wheatiest because it's the original wheat.
5. Why do apes at Regent Place have an annual beard and top hat festival during winter? Author, Sanford Ford, 4th place.
This is to perform a sacred ritual to conjure the mighty and hairy god, Fluff Captain, a giant top hat made completely out of hair. Each winter apes will take a single thread from their caps and a single hair from their mustaches and toss them into a raging bonfire. Together they all recite the sacred phrase, "My mustache is too long. It gets in my mouth. My top hat is too tall. Birds keep landing on it." And sure enough, before their very eyes, Fluff Captain appears in the flames. "I'm here to help, my dear friends," he says as bits of ash land on each ape, instantly making their mustaches grow 3x their size and their hats grow 14 feet tall. "Until next year," he mutters as he vanishes back into the flames. The apes all look at each other in anger. "He does this every year, why do we think it's going to be different each time? Now my mouth is full of hair and there's a whole family of birds and one mountain goat living on top of my hat." Disappointed, the apes all return to their cabins to hope for a different outcome next year.
Visitors in Doork East, the Four Horses of the Apocalypse. Author, Toggen. The wheat stalks were swaying in the wind as the sun was setting after a hot day in rural Doork East. The farmers at King Avenue would normally retreat to their cottages for a bite to eat, and maybe sample a glass of fine whiskey to celebrate the end of another hard day in the fields. Little did they know that the events of this evening would be quite out of the ordinary and prove both extremely profitable and somewhat horrifying at the same time. Dusk had just crept over the outskirts of King Avenue. If any apes had been present, they would have seen a bright flash of light emanating from the skies above. As the light flickered, a loud noise boomed and then silence fell. What remained was a steady gleam, about 7 times 7 feet, that hovered slightly above ground. After the initial commotion, something could be seen stepping out of the illumination. A strange sight indeed, as 4 horse-like creatures stepped out of the portal. The creatures were ordinary by no means, they were filthy rich and bloated with self-importance and blasé. Their names were Colonel Best, Grifter Drifter, Speedrunner and Doohickey Grafton III, Doughy for short. Their bodies were adorned by all kinds of outlandishly overdone costumes, ranging from jockey uniforms to sparkly disco jackets. Doughy was even wearing goggles and a cowboy hard hat. Colonel Best, who was first out of the portal, let out a loud neigh and reinstated a grotesquely large cigar between his teeth. "By the good gods, who would have thought? We made it through!" As he turned around, he stared at the other 3 horses who looked like they were close to death's door. Their tongues were hanging out, they were panting feverishly, and their pupils had traveled so far up their heads that only the white could be seen. "Oh, do get a grip of yourselves, chaps, it's only a bit of interstellar travel. Nothing to fret about." As the other horses started to come back to life again, Speedrunner, a rather slim thoroughbred clad in a multicolored jockey uniform, spoke up. "Now that is easy for you to say, Colonel, we were stuck behind you, and let me tell you, that rancid kebab you ate at the food challenge reception made a rather extravagant comeback. We nearly perished in there." The other 2 horses nodded in agreement and shook their heads to regain clarity. Colonel Best burst out in laughter as he let out the remaining fractions of the kebab. What you chaps need now is to have some jolly good fun. Let's see what this place has to offer. Surely there must be somewhere we can entertain ourselves for a few hours? Well, let's get a move on then, said Grifter Drifter as he pulled out an expensive-looking champagne bottle from his pocket. From what I remember, this blasted portal will go out in less than 4 hours. I'd rather we not be stuck here for too long. Champagne, anyone? The horses took turns gulping down the expensive bubbles and looked around for something to do. Say, this place looks rather deserted, Doey said with a frown. It even seems we must trot ourselves to some sort of civilization. How undignified! Not a lackey in sight. Well, if we must, let's go in style. Grifter Drifter grinned as a foot-long joint was procured from a hidden pocket in his saddlebags. A few minutes later the horses seemed more content with the situation and started trudging along for any sign of life. As luck would have it, the horses saw quite a lot of lights coming from a few cottages further down the field. They could also see what looked like hairy creatures running around outside. Progress at last. Let us make our presence known to these inferior creatures. Doey was now leading the group as he quickly walked closer to the perceived civilization. As the horses approached the cottages, it was now clear that the apes in the area had gathered around a bonfire and seemed to have some sort of get-together. A fat pig was roasting on a spit, and several bottles of fine brew were stacked on a table near the fire. From the looks of it, maybe as many as 20 apes were gathered in the area. The 4 horses walked up to the apes and started introducing themselves in their usual manner. How very convenient to chance upon this primitive gathering. It is us, the filthy rich horses. We are here to be entertained. The greeting from Doey didn't elicit the expected response from the apes, though. A tired-looking ape lifted his sombrero and squinted with his eyes. We don't have any talking horses in these parts, you know. Our horses mainly eat hay and run around the fields. By the looks of it, you lot belong in a circus and not out here in the districts. The 4 horses burst out in simultaneous laughter. How very unperceptive of you, dear sir. Do not mistake flair and scruff. We only deal in the latest flavors of fashion. As the horses seemed amused, they each threw some gold coins directly at the sombrero-clad ape. The ape jumped up in surprise and seemed to be taken back for a second. That was all it took for the other apes nearby to realize what was happening. A high-pitched gibber was heard from the sombrero ape just before he ended up under a pile of 10 other apes. After the skirmish had resolved and a few apes had emerged several gold coins richer, the mood in the area had improved significantly. The poor sombrero ape was still laying flat on his back in the mud, but the other apes now curiously approached the horses to see what was going on. Sensing that it was time to make the next move, Speedrunner pulled out a huge diamond from his jockey helmet. It seems you lot fancy these shiny trinkets. I can assure you all that there are lots more where these came from. Let us organize a small shindig, and we will make sure that the trinkets are generously distributed. As Speedrunner was showing off his diamond to the crowd, the apes were becoming ecstatic, sensing that these strange creatures would turn out to be very profitable in the short term. In the back of the crowd, a blue ape with gold teeth and a Voltaire wig feverishly waved both of his arms. Oh, okay, Og, what can we do to earn more of these diamonds and gold coins? I want some as well. Speedrunner reached into his pocket, pulled out a random gemstone and pelted it over at the blue ape. You already did, my lad. Now, we do not have a lot of time, so let us get this event started. Speedrunner pointed towards random apes, while generously handing out coins and gems. If there was something the horses knew, it was how to get a good party going. Each ape was responsible for fetching certain items. The horses needed 2 barrels of whiskey, some buckets of red and blue paint, a bowl, a heavy handful of magic mushrooms, 4 decks of playing cards, a barrel of water and a makeshift small hut. Apart from that, it was encouraged that each ape should try to consume as much alcohol as possible in the shortest amount of time. The apes cheered loudly and went to fetch the items while at the same time emptying all the bottles they could find. The blue ape with the gold teeth and the Voltaire wig had now assumed the role as leader of the apes. Miraculously, they had managed to procure all the items that the horses had requested. Considering the amount of alcohol already consumed, it was a small miracle. Hey race ya goo horses. All's the items are here. Now, what's do we do with it, EY? Doey looked very pleased and started instructing the apes. Now lads, what we should do for our first game is to get the 2 fastest apes to step forward. We then pour red paint over one ape and blue paint over the other. As Doey dropped more gems, it was very easy to find recruits. Very soon the 2 winners were drenched in paint and looked as happy as ever. The next step was the introduction of the bull. The filthy rich horses had made a bet among themselves as to what an angry bull would chase, a blue ape or a red ape. The 2, now slightly intoxicated and colored apes, were placed in an open field. The bull was brought out in the field where he spotted them. Grifter Drifter would then sneak up behind the bull and give him a snap across the balls. The bull charged and the poor intoxicated apes started to panic and ran for cover. It seemed that the bull had his eyes on the blue ape. Luckily, he managed to climb up a tree just before the bull reached him. Ah ha ha ha. The horses laughed in ecstasy. It seemed Doey had lost his 500 million bet to Colonel Best, but seemed unfazed by the monetary loss. I say, that was jolly good fun, but let's not procrastinate. We need to set up the outhouse. Again, the apes were put to work. This time they were to construct a makeshift sauna where they would make a hole in the wall and connect a pipe from the wall to a water tank. The tank would then be filled with water and heated up, resulting in a hot steam circulating the sauna outhouse. Listen up, the lot of you. Doey was grinning as he scattered more trinkets around for the apes. The next game is rather simple, a little guessing game if you will. We need 2 apes. Both apes will enter the outhouse and drink a bottle of whiskey. After that, one of the apes will exit the outhouse and his job is to guess who went out. Of course, we all place bets on the outcome. The promise of riches and booze made the recruiting process a smooth one. 2 sturdy-looking apes stepped up, got their fill of gold coins and a bottle of whiskey. They now climbed into the outhouse. Soon enough steam was emanating from between the planks and clanking of bottles could be heard. Meanwhile, the apes and the horses made bets between themselves as to who would come out victorious. 10 minutes had passed when suddenly one ape opened the door. White steam was coming off his fur as he shambled out. He held an empty bottle in one hand and tried to open his mouth. All that came out was a cloud of steam and a hissing sound. He then pointed at the moon and passed out on the spot. Well, will you look at that, Grifter Drifter said. He surely is unaware of his surroundings. It seems we have a winner by default. How extraordinary. The apes who had bet on the poor creature who remained in the outhouse quickly went in to bring him out for celebrations. When they came in, he was sitting frozen with a grin on his face and a half-empty bottle beside him. Lifting him out of his spot, his grin still remained, but he seemed to not understand much of what was happening around him. The winning apes then found a king's crown that they placed on his head and rested him in a chair near the fireplace. How amusing, you lads sure did a fine job with that lavatory. Now, please hand out the mushrooms to everyone. Come now, eat up, and let's all play a game of cards. As they all greedily consumed the mushrooms, Doey combined the 4 decks of cards into one giant stack and started to pass cards out randomly. As the apes no longer seemed capable of understanding what a card was, let alone how to play an actual game, the result was thereafter. Some apes started throwing the cards in the fire. One ape tried to deposit several cards in between the teeth of the grinning ape with the crown, and yet another thought it could be used as toilet paper. The 4 horses looked around at the commotion, visibly content with how the evening had panned out. Well, old chaps, I think the activities of this evening have just about peaked. Shall we adjourn to our portal and leave these lads to cool off for a bit? Colonel Best stretched his hooves and gave out a yawn. The other horses nodded in approval and started walking away from the cottages back the same way as they came. Say, these beings were rather amusing. We must come back another time, don't you all agree? Doughy turned around one last time before they parted and tipped his hats to the apes. At this point the apes had mostly fallen asleep and were completely unaware that the horses had left. The next day they didn't fully remember all the activities from the night before, but it seemed that all of them were laden with both gold and gems aplenty. They could vaguely remember that these strange horse creatures had wandered in from nowhere to wreak havoc on the place, but the details were somewhat blurred. Oh well, the apes had made a fortune and the mess could be easily cleaned up. It seemed all had enjoyed a memorable evening.
Shield the Mind. Author, Thopre Brown.
Everything changes. The basic units of perception and effect carry the attitude of the universe. The universe is not still, it changes, thus we, and in turn, our experience of the world, changes. As such, the self builds meaning in the unfixed nature of reality. Being is thus becoming. By deconstructing the strictness of fixed concepts and embracing the flow of becoming, the oneness of things, one shields the mind. Thus spoke Thopre Brown, Doork East, the Ape Society.
Take a break, Sanford and Crudford. Author, Sanford Ford.
Be a good Crudford and fetch the special hot dog that makes Sanford forget about the existence of beef, chicken, cardboard boxes, cell phones, and toothpaste.
Crudship.
Remember Crudford. The special hot dog is wrapped in toilet paper.
Crudape. Crudbonk.
Sanford can't wait to forget about the beef Wellington. Oh, you ate it.
Crudermf.
Crudford, this is very important. Can you tell Sanford what a purple toothpaste is used for?
Crud.
It has begun. Sanford is oddly proud. Well done, Crudford.
Crudmerf.
What's my name? An opinion piece by Amans Best. Author, Amans Best. The Ape Society is different. I could end this article right here, and that statement, whilst ringing true, would leave you unfulfilled. So, what is it that makes the Ape Society different? It's a simple attribute that changes everything, and it's all in a name. The year is 1993 and Snoop Dogg bursts onto the global music scene with his debut studio single titled Who Am I? What's My Name? Until now Snoop was an unknown artist outside of hardcore hip-hop heads. So, when Snoop released Who Am I?, this question rang true: who is this guy? Whilst the title asks, who am I? In reality what Snoop is ironically say is, here I am. Here's my name. Listen close, learn my name because I'm here to stay. Snoop is declaring his identity. What's my **** name? The response is Snoop Doggy Dogg. In this call and response, Snoop fully understands the power of brand, the power of identity, and the power of a strong unusual name. In the entertainment world, some music artists have built enormous global brands and have done so using just one name, for example, Madonna, Adele, Prince, Beyoncé, Pink, Sting, the list goes on. These artists have managed to build such huge brands whilst dropping the necessity to comply to the formality of forename and surname which the rest of the world complies to. Names and identities are synonymous. A name is everything, and Snoop fully understood this on his debut single, where he took this opportunity to make his presence, His brand, his identity, his name known. On the flip side to this, Juliet in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet questions the importance and relevance of a name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Juliet knows that the blood feud between two rival families is preventing her from being with a Montague. Her lover's surname, Montague, and her surname, Capulet, don't mix. Juliet's rather simplistic, dismissive tone about names shows that Juliet never had to trawl through endless listings of NFTs, and if she did, she might notice one overwhelming fact. The labeling of NFTs is dull. NFTs are simply numbered from number 1 upwards. Then what is the importance of differentiating between two similar objects, and especially with NFTs? We love to feel control and ownership over the items we have purchased and possess. So, it's very important to the owner to be able to identify and claim ownership of a certain NFT. The labeling matters, and it's important to know which is yours. Here are two of the same images of the Ape Society ape. One has the Ape Society name, the other a number. In this example I've used its rank for its number. As subtle as it may be, there is a huge difference. Juliet is correct, the rose smells just as sweet, whichever image you look at, because both images are the same. Both images show a naked ape. His fur looks like it would be ruffled in a gentle breeze, and highlights in the fur help to cut the image out from the blue background. He is wearing his red sunglasses, which complement his brown fur. He has a pair of white earphones in his ears, which helps boost the suggestion that this ape is carefree and relaxed. The attention to detail in the brush-stroke style art is both classic yet contemporary, and no attempt has been made to soften the appearance of each digital brush stroke. One image has the label 5133, the other is called Thane Wilson. Something changes when you give the ape a name. Suddenly it has a world of potential. Thane Wilson can be a brand, Thane Wilson can form an identity, Thane Wilson can come to life. Names are an incredibly important part of our identity. They carry deep personal, cultural, familial, and historical connections. A name gives a sense of being, who we are, and our place in the world. Ape storytelling began almost immediately after the Ape Society mint. Ape owners found humor in the apes' unusual names. Apes formed bonds with fellow apes who shared the same surname. Characters began forming, stories were developed, and slowly, but surely, human nature took a hold, and we started to develop strong connections with our apes. You see, Juliet is both correct and incorrect. Yes, it is the same NFT image, whether it is called 5133 or Thane Wilson. The rose still smells as sweet because both images are identical. But a name has history, it has loyalty, it is family, and it represents their identity. This can't simply be dismissed or ignored. NFTs owners have always used some of their favorite images as PFPs on their social media accounts, picture for profiles. Yet shortly after the Ape Society minted, something new started to happen. Not only did collectors replace their PFPs for the Ape Society apes, they also started taking on the names of their prized apes as well. Accounts like Thopre Brown and Sanford started to appear, and people started to breathe life into these images. You see, a name conjures up more than a simple number. What if I was to tell you Thane Wilson is a craftsman? With a little bit of research, you'd have been able to figure that out for yourself, because all Wilsons are craftsmen. But what if I told you Thane loves the simple life, yet is passionate about his craftsmanship? What if I told you he prefers to work in workshops with other craftsmen, rather than working alone? Thane loves the camaraderie and competition this brings about. Where the "that'll do" attitude disappears completely, because ape craftsmen are fiercely proud and compete with one another. What if I told you Thane loves being around his fellow apes because Thane has a wicked sense of humor? The descriptive paragraph above is only possible because Ape 5133 has a name, and that name is Thane Wilson. Thane the craftsman, Thane the joker, Thane the comedian. You see, without the name Thane Wilson, all the descriptive text above about his personality just would not stick. The naming convention used for the Ape Society apes didn't end here. When the cabins minted, it became abundantly clear that Ape Force One, the nickname and identity of the developers of the Ape Society, were going to use names for the districts and streets on the Ape Society map. This in turn led to the creation of the Doork East, Doorks. Prior to the cabin's mint, my Twitter timeline was full of pictures where people were changing an original image and adding their ape's head over the top. There were other accounts who were actively using their ape persona online and even more talking about the new apes they had acquired, and the attributes and benefits that would come from their collection. Whilst waiting for the cabin's mint, I thought, what if? What if a group of like-minded apes came together and took over an area on the map? One morning, I looked through my Twitter timeline and thought I'd reach out to 5 or 6 of the most active apes. I was curious to see if they wanted to form an ape stronghold, so I sent the following message. Firstly, apologies for the DM. I woke this morning with an idea and wanted to put it to you guys first to see if it's a possibility. I see you all talking almost daily about the Ape Society and feel you're as invested in this project, not financially, but in the belief in it, as I am. I have this idea, so please bear with me. What if we the apes build a postcode that becomes as desirable as the A-rated SLVD only in one district in the Z-rated postcodes? What if a group of us picked a region in the affordable Z postcodes, just one town, and made that the must-be location for all the believers in the society? Yes, we'd have to buy a secondary, and yes, that means more money. But what if we attracted the most vocal apes into one area and made it an unofficial ape stronghold? It would be great to get a ton of like-minded people into one town. I know this is slightly rebellious and obviously the A's are the Hamptons. But what if? What if we turn the fortunes of AZ postcode? What if the ape community became a real, well, metaverse community? What if we came together and put a pin in the map? I actually think the devs would respect this community-driven collective, and I'm sure they'd champion it. I thought I'd keep this behind closed doors for now so as not to drive up price for a certain town. Let me know your thoughts. Amans best shifty shutter shade town planner. P.S. You're a cross-section of my active tweeters. I haven't deliberately excluded anyone. I just want to see if this is even viable. Thank you all. This was sent prior to the public mint and the district map hadn't been released. I waited for the responses, and to my surprise my fellow apes liked the idea. When the full list of districts and district map came out, our focus was to find a suitable location for us to set up a fan zone. The discussion about which district to choose quickly became centered around Doork East. We decided that Doork East fit all the criteria we were looking for. It sat nicely in an affordable area on the edge of the map, and it had a great name. It was the name that drew us to District 11. The fact we could use this name to brand ourselves Doorks has helped enormously with our endeavors. In the very beginning we talked about not being restricted to one district, but by having AZ postcode. All apes would require AZ postcode, irrelevant of district. This idea was soon dropped due to the very sad invasion of the Ukraine by the Russian army and their use of the Z branding. You see, names and identity can be both positive and negative, and using the Z alone would not work in the current global climate. A brief discussion was held about using the SVLDY. As in why, not join us. But again, the power of the Doork East name and its play on word was just too overwhelmingly powerful that we couldn't resist using it. The story of how the Doorks grew from this initial DM is a story for another issue. Needless to say, it was collective effort which formed and has grown exponentially behind a strong identity, a strong brand, a strong community, and a strong name.
Exclusive interview. Amans Best spoke to Matasa from Ape Force 1 to get more insight from the team regarding the use of names in the Ape Society.
You've used names to delineate the class in which a group of apes sits. Browns are all craftsmen. This makes it immediately obvious to recognize an ape's class just from the name. In real life, however, your family name alone would not dictate class unless you were born into royalty. Was there any point in the early stages where you considered social mobility? For example, a Brown could be an artist, craftsman, an explorer. The family names fit in their classes in different ways. I can say that the rarity of the apes is somewhat related to the rarity of the names out in the real world. You clearly had a lot of fun choosing all the names which could be attributed to the apes. What sources did you use to find the names? We hope it's not just Google alone. We would love to think there were some Victorian baby name books or funny keywords used in your searches. The nobles are called de Medici and they used to run the world at a certain point in time. Military officers' names come from Old English surnames. Merchants' names are taken from real-life mafia families. Explorers are in honor of the Spanish conquistadors and craftsmen names are the 10 most common English family names. There is a bit of psychology behind craftsmen's names though. Being the most common name, we thought that, probability-wise, there would be more people identifying with these apes, by having the same family name or knowing someone with it, and ultimately create a stronger bond with their apes. Can you share any names that were an absolute no? That would just not fit in the collection no matter what. We tried to relate the names to the art and theme, so anything outside that range wouldn't make sense to us. I remember generating names and putting them next to the apes to see if they made sense and eliminated all those that didn't. The highest family name in the ape society is de Medici. Did you discuss alternatives? Can you share any of those? What is the story behind de Medici? Why did you settle on this? Were you all in agreement or did you have to debate it? Initially the nobles were to have individual families but with the title Sir, i.e. Sir Webster Lewis. We then tossed that idea away so as not to dilute family names and for the purpose of the future utility. Once de Medici was mentioned it just clicked and knowing all the history behind the family everything made sense. We just had to do it. We had the idea for forming a community stronghold in a district just before the cabin's map was revealed. We recognized the strength in a name and chose Doork East from the list of all 35 districts. This is because of the play on words. We are all dorks at the end of the day and it was obviously a strong brand identity we can play on. Is there anything you can tell us about the name Doork East? Where it came from and did you see the dork reference when choosing it? I've got to be honest, all the districts' names are random apart from Tassima City, Canmard City, Gokhan City and Mariana Heights. I literally used formulas with some conditions to generate the names. Some just turned out great like Doork East. We had to manually add north, south, east, west, etc., to not sound totally random and make sense on the map. We are happy how all names turned out. To answer your question, surprisingly Doork East had nothing to do with the word dork whatsoever. Thank you Matasa for sharing this with us. You're welcome. I had an amazing time creating this stuff so I'm happy to share how it all went down.
Willful Engagement Ruling Decree. Author, Amans Best. The original text from the Willful Engagement Ruling Decree. Doork Orders and Commands. Established 51 BSB before societal banking. It can also be referred to in short as the Doork East word doc scribed on a solid granite stone tablet. The word doc stone tablet was discovered by explorer Beardsley de la Cruz and the craftsman team whilst digging the subterranean foundations for the Doork East bank vault extension tunnels. Work had to suddenly halt due to the discovery of many small Doork East heritage artifacts in the earthen spoils. Ancient artifact archaeologist Dempster Monet was called in to oversee the historical preservation of any such artifacts that were unearthed during the process. This has led to a lot of downtime for the craftsman building team led by no other than master craftsman Leland Smith. It goes without saying, when the archaeologists were called in, the craftsmen were stood down until its recovery was completed. They decided to make haste to the nearest watering hole to celebrate the discoveries. This in turn created a huge celebration that spread quickly across the district and lasted for between 3 and 5 days. The exact duration is still unknown. During this time of much celebration and commotion, the Doork East word doc was temporarily misplaced and thankfully it turned up again after the celebrations slowly died down. The Doork East word doc is the oldest known text to have been discovered in the district and predates the birth of our financial banking system. Craftsmen are frantically building a museum to house the stone tablet and the many unusual artifacts that were discovered at the same time. The stone tablet has the following rules and guidelines carved into it which have been passed down from generation to generation as folklore by word of mouth. It is nice to finally see those texts in all their glory, and many of which are adhered to today by the inhabitants of Doork East. Historians exclaim a wealth of knowledge has been stored on a tablet with the ever-amazing words from the word Dock. Items like this are truly historic and never to be seen or created again in such ornate glory as the original word Dock. Some key points from the texts carved into the willful engagement ruling decree. Doork orders and commands. Sewn tablet. Interpretation. 1. Doorks must be true to the ape society before all others. 2. Maintain an orderly homestead in Doork East as your primary residence. 3. Secondary residences and the adulatory of such shall be overlooked as long as a Doork East residence is held in an order fit for a king's visit. 4. The appreciation of art is what distinguishes us from the animals. All artworks must be displayed in an order fit for a king's visit. 5. On the second full moon of the prevailing season. All news shall be spread from the highest vantage points. Much noise must be made to attract others of the order and importance of the news. 6. All Doorks are to be regarded as a group that shall respect and honor each Doork equally with the same regard fit for a king. The Who's Who of Doork East. Linwood Ventucci. Artist, 71, Mason Court. Linwood Ventucci and Bentley Baldwin had known each other for just a little while before becoming flatmates. One is a retired military officer, suffering from a severe case of PTSD after the war, but Linwood quickly realizes he's not traumatized about being a soldier, but what's happening is that Bentley actually misses it. Linwood offered him a different lifestyle, war against the unknown, against the mysterious ape with no name, known as Moriarty. York Best. Artist, 71, Mason Court. York has been friends with Linwood and Bentley from a long time. He's looking for a nice place to live to move from his last cottage. He's here to help Linwood and Bentley on any adventure they might need him for. He's a great artist ex-pirate, must come in handy at any moment. Simon Best. Artist, 112, Brown Avenue. Recording artist Simon is a nightmare to live alongside. He simply won't stop playing music at all hours of the day and night and can't bring himself to turn the volume down on good tune, despite various injunctions against him. Hunter Maddock. Explorer, 106, Brown Avenue. Warrant Officer Maddock talks very little about his decades-long military service. In his personal life, Hunter is ranked well above expert in renowned chess circles, a pastime he uses to keep his mind sharp in older age. Garrick Amato. Merchant, 106, Brown Avenue. Customers flock to the ramshackle workshop of former art forger and gallery owner Garrick. Clients of Amato Fine Art and Antiquities are advised to check the provenance of any purchase carefully. Even the auction houses concede that some of his restorations are near impossible to differentiate from legitimate masterpieces. Bolton Wright. Military Officer, 108, Kingswood Road. Temporarily run aground, Bolton Wright, Old Thunder, all but willed his nearly shipwrecked vessel to Apetown Harbor before continuing on to Doork East in search of refuge and a plan. An adventurous and miserly spirit, this plundering scorch-faced wretch teeters on the brink of insanity with only his pipe to console him. It is rumored that his treasures are hidden throughout the ape society, entrusted and locked away amongst a group of seafaring shipwrights. Bonaventure Green. Merchant, 29, Jericho Way. Bonaventure started his crafting journey in Tasima City and became a master craftsman following years of training in Doork East. His specialty was projectors. Every ape throughout the society looked for the Green's crest when purchasing one. He was perplexed by light and learned about electromagnetism, how it shines our homes and heats our planet. Nowadays you find him by a desk frantically writing incomprehensible characters, page after page. Broderick Monet. Royal Advisor, 101, Victoria Grove. Broderick used to advise the Medicis on solving the problems that plagued the central districts such as crime and overpopulation. However, he always wanted to live a quiet life away from the hustle and bustle, so he settled in Doork East hoping to achieve this. Unfortunately for him, his quiet time is often interrupted by his neighbors trying to blow up the giant wall right next to his humble cottage. Kip Cataldi. Merchant, 85, Sutherland Place. Master Kip Cataldi, a young and ambitious ape, studying and practicing the art of weaponry, rifles in particular. He now holds his master's degree, aiming for his doctorate, at the esteemed University of Doork East. Alvin Best. Artist, 85, Sutherland Place. Born an artist, and so Alvin Best thought this to be his destiny, but alas, the universe has other plans for this ape of Doork East. Dane Maddock. Military Officer, 127, Regent Place. Dane Maddock served his time in prison for a crime he did commit. Yes, in fact he would serve this time all over again given the choice. You see, being a military officer from a young age instilled a sense of belief. Dane, however, chooses not to divulge just what crime he was convicted of, he chooses to leave that up to your imagination. Sanford de Balboa. Explorer, 127, Regent Place. Sanford de Balboa, a very good mate of Dane Maddock. They decided to get a cottage together in the very upmarket District 11 of Doork East. They childhood mates, grew up way down south. Sanford, however, had a very different path to his dear friend Dane. He'd been an explorer set off very early to explore life beyond the south. Sanford has proudly explored 35 districts, and only one place to call home. Alfred de Balboa. Artist, 42, Canmard City Avenue. Shunned by his peers growing up, Alfred knew he was different. This sword-wielding, VR goggle-wearing ape had been through a lot. He tried hard to belong, but having had enough, he decided to pack up his belongings and move out east to a district he could have only dreamed of. A place where apes of all classes were welcomed. A place where he could be himself, lost in his virtual world. As he stepped into District 11, he knew it then. He was home. Ramiro King. Craftsman, 104, South Sam Street. Ramiro is quiet by nature, a respectful observer and explorer. He has been honing his craftsman skills since he was a wee ginger ape in diapers, now reaping the rewards of his labor. The son of a scoundrel and trickster, Ramiro has worked hard to earn back the respect of good society and redeem his family name. Now, with luck and hard work on his side, he resides in a humble cottage in Doork East where the sun shines down on his chin hairs and tickles his hope for the future. Amilcar Chiesa. Merchant King, 85, Mornington Road. King Chiesa is incredibly proud of his Chiesa heritage. A family of merchants, who by definition have weathered many storms, and have traveled many miles for goods and riches to the benefit of the whole society. Although a king's life can be luxurious, with his multiple chateaux, Amilcar Chiesa prefers to frequently retreats to his humble cottage alongside the Doorks, where the simplicity creates clarity and peace and tranquility abound. Brock King. Artist King, 126, Birkbeck Road. Seaman and real-life explorer. Amans Taylor. Craftsman, 11, Regent Place. Amans Taylor, co-founder of King's Arts and Artistic Items Ape Store alongside its partner, Dove Cox, is also a very experienced tailor and learned how to sew clothes with the finest style at a young age to dress the most honored apes in the society. Dover Cox. Artist, 11, Regent Place. Dove Cox is a hunter artist of the contemporary times. After the hunts, Dove is a master of taxidermy, fur products, and animal paintings. The artist is known all around the society for his famous fur coats produced collaboratively with Amans tailor and worn by royal advisors and kings themselves. Landon Baldwin. Military Officer, 107, Skyview Avenue. Landon Baldwin is known to his fellow military officers as a ruthless and brutal tactician, having used his sword to remove the heads of many enemies. In contrast, his family and friends know him as a kind and playful soul, spending much of his time entertaining the youngling apes. In his older age, he spends much of his time playing old war tunes on his harmonica and wondering why his eyesight is failing him from sun damage. Milton Wilson. Craftsman, 51, Walnut Street. Craftsman in training with hopes of one day starting his own successful craftsman business building fine furniture for the fine apes of Doork East and beyond. Salvat Cataldi. Merchant, 74, Jericho Way. World-renowned for his sophisticated stature and success in the trade of precious metals, Mr. Salvat Cataldi often retreats to his Doork East estate. Each year, thousands make the long trip east to deal in gold, silver, society and other collectibles with Mr. Cataldi. Huntley Cox. Artist, 42, Jericho Way. Huntley Cox moved to his estate in the idyllic countryside of Doork East a month ago. There he tries to free his mind and broaden his horizons. Some ideas are already spinning around his head, but he only talks about them with close friends or with strangers after the third glass of whiskey. He is a passionate host and always likes to invite like-minded people to his cozy estate. But don't forget one thing, better bring whiskey. Cortland Taylor. Craftsman, 155, Mason Court. Growing up next to the amphitheater, he loved the battles and the roar of the crowds, but mostly the weaponry used in the battles. He would sit outside after the battles and wait for the warriors to emerge and offer his services in maintaining and sharpening their swords, daggers, spears and arrows. Some of the warriors started calling him Blades, which has stuck with him for all these years. Today he is well known for the sharpest blades in all of the ape society.
Special thanks. We would like to express a huge thank you to all the apes who have joined Doork East for their support, time, ideas, contributions and passion that made this magazine possible. Our community is our treasure.